Hey guys. Tonight, we stumble straight into a blizzard. Your breath comes out in pale clouds as you hunch inside a reindeer hide cloak that doesn't quite cover your backside. The snow crunches beneath your leather-wrapped feet. And your fingers, numb, might as well be frozen carrots. The wind screams louder than a toddler denied berries. And you're pretty sure your eyebrows have icicles on them. Welcome to the Ice Age. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You squint ahead, blinking snowflakes from your lashes, trudging behind the rest of the clan. You've been walking for hours through a barren white nothing. Every rock is coated in frost. Every tree branch groans under snow weight. And the sky above is just an endless, steel-colored dome. There's no GPS, no compass, no helpful road signs, just the faint smell of smoke and the half-remembered directions from the elder who last led the route. 50 years ago, you duck behind a rocky outcrop for shelter, nose red and runny, when a shape appears in the distance. Nota predator. Thankfully, but a hunched figure waving you forward. A scout. You shuffle faster, knees aching. Your group's finally found what passes for a cave, barely more than a dip in the stone. But better than dying upright in the snow. Inside, it's pitch black, but the wind is muted, and the air tastes more like damp than death. This isn't a cozy movie cave. By the way, no flickering firelight yet. No furry rugs. The walls weep moisture, and there's the faint but undeniable scent of something having peed here. Recently. You sit anyway. Anything to get off your legs. You fish around for your flint kit. And after a few strike sand, a lot of muttered caveman, cursing you, coax out a spark. Dry moss catches. You blow gently. And there it is. The tiniest flame, glowing like it's judging you. It's only now that your ears adjust. You hear the others huddling, whispering in hoarse, tired voices. A baby lets out a croaky cry. Someone's sharpening something on stone. No one's talking politics or arguing about taxes, just whether the meat will last the week and how far the mammoth herds have moved. The Ice Age doesn't care if you're vegan. If you don't eat, you die. And if you don't find shelter, you die faster. The fire crackles. But it's tiny. So you pull your hide tighter. You eye the walls for cave bears. Historians still argue whether humans regularly fought them for shelter or just ran screaming the other way. You'd probably be in the screaming camp. Even without visible bears, there's tension in the air. You can smell it. That mix of damp fear and old animal grease. A seasoned elder is passing out strips of dried meat chewy. Gamey, but weirdly comforting. You chew with frozen jaws. The stars outside are blazing now, sharp against the black sky. One of the elders starts murmuring a story about the sky being a giant elk's rib cage, and stars are holes poked through by the spirits. You don't know if it's true, but it's warm to listen. In Ice Age logic, that counts as entertainment. Honestly, it beats most reality television. Eventually, the cave settles into heavy breathing and low snores. You wedge a stone behind your back for support and tuck your hands under your arms to keep them from falling off. Or at least feeling like it. Outside, a Wolfhauslung. Lonely. And much too close for comfort. But the fire's still alive. You're still alive. You lean your head back against the cold stone and shut your eyes. Just for a moment. Your breath rasps in the tight space. Someone near you coughs a rough, wet sound and you open your eyes again. Can't afford sickness. Not now. Not when your tribe is already down 2 people from frostbite and 1 from falling through river ice. You remember the scream and the silence that followed. You still see it in your dreams. Behind you, a few kids fuss. One of the mothers distracts them with a pouch of carved animal bones game pieces for some Ice Age version of chess. You watch as they clack the bones on stone, pretending one is a bear and the other a fleeing man. The bear always wins. You warm your hands over the tiny flame and pull out a little pouch from your wrap. It holds nothing special, some dried berries, a nub of smoked fish, a small tooth charm, but each item feels like wealth. One woman is plucking goose feathers from a cloak she's patching. Another man is twisting sinew into a bowstring. Jaw clenched, like he's arguing with it. Someone hums. Just a few low notes. Repetitive and slow. But it shifts the mood. The fire spits in time. Like it's listening. You tap your fingers on the stone. The rhythm is older than language. 2 elders begin a soft debate. One swears the glacier is alive, that it eats valleys and drinks sunlight. The other says it's a curse from the sky spirits. Sent when humans forgot the frozen gods. The kids lean in. You do too. Historians still argue whether Ice Age spirituality was animism, shamanism, or just poetic weather forecasting. Your eyelids grow heavier. The cold's still there, but your body's made peace with it. You curl toward the fire, like a creature burrowing for warmth. You think about mammoths, about valleys lost to ice, about your grandmother's necklace that vanished in a river months ago. Just before you sleep, you wonder if future people will ever know what it was like to freeze and fight. To sleep with your foot in someone else's armpit just for warmth. If they do, you hope they never forget the smell. Your fingers tremble as you cradle the last ember. One moment of wind, and it's gone. But this time, you're ready. You crouch low behind a wall of stones. Breath held. Eyes wide. Smoke curls up. Like a question mark. And then, yes, there it is. A tiny orange kiss of life. Fire. Again. Your 4th attempt this morning, which is better than yesterday. When you spent 6 hours and got nothing but a bruised knuckle and a mental breakdown no one cared about. You feed the spark with shredded bark, moss, and bits of dried dungies. Dung. You pinch the materials in gently, coaxing the fire, like it's a moody toddler who doesn't want to go to bed. One careless movement, and it dies in protest. One good breath, though, and it flickers higher. Someone behind you lets out an impressed grunt. That's basically an Oscar in caveman terms. You sit back, hands streaked with soot, and feel the radiant glow reach your skin. It's not just heat. It's safety. It's proof you know what you're doing. Sort of. Fire means you'll eat something warm tonight, instead of gnawing on frozen squirrel until your teeth feel like cracked stones. Fire means the wolves will hesitate. Fire means the shadows can't win completely. You remember the first time you saw fire. Not just the accidental kind from lightning that burns a tree down, though that was terrifying but real. Controlled flame. It looked like a monster at first. Hissing and biting. Dancing with colors no cave painting could capture. The elder who made it had a burn scar across his palm and exactly 0 patience. He didn't speak much. Just grunted. Struck stone to stone. And motioned until you copied him. For weeks. You failed. Every time you lit a spark, it died fast. Then one day, it worked. And now, you're the one showing a younger clanmate how to shield the ember. How to build the kindling pile like a nest. You watch his face flicker in the glow wide-eyed. Hopeful. A little singed. He drops the ember once. And it smokes out. Tragedy. But no one yells. You just nod and start again. Historians still argue whether early fire-making was a closely guarded secret or shared communally. Some believe only the shamans were allowed to carry the firestones, treating them like holy relics. Others think it was a skill. Everyone was expected to know. Survival wasn't optional. Either way, in this moment, it feels sacred. You could lose everything else. But not this. Later, you help carry a burning branch to the next shelter site. Wind threatens to kill it every 10 steps. You shield it with your body, cupping the tip like it's a dying candle. By the time you reach the new cave, your arm is numb, and the fire is just barely alive. But alive it is. And that's enough. You place it down, pile tinder around it, and gently nurse it back into a flame. The others cheer, or at least grunt with visible enthusiasm. One of the older women throws a handful of dried herbs onto the fire lavender. Maybe. Or something that smells like old feet but makes the smoke pleasing. She says it keeps bad dreams away. Another tells her to stop wasting good plants. The two bicker until someone tosses in a frozen beetle, and they both get distracted. Dinner that night is hot. That's all that matters. Not the flavor. Not the texture. Just warmth. The meat tastes like wood smoke and something gamey you can't quite place, probably reindeer. Possibly rat. Maybe both. You burn your tongue. And you don't care. That night, the fire keeps burning. You feed it hourly with branches stripped from fallen trees. Your dreams are wild flashes of mammoth herds, strange fire creatures, and one moment where you're roasting a fish and the fish insults your cooking. You wake up laughing. Sort of. Mostly you just cough from the smoke curling around the ceiling. In the morning, you catch someone trying to smuggle a coal in a risky move. But clever. A good ember could mean fire in a new camp. And that means power. You help him wrap it in moss. Tie it up. And warn him not to sneeze on it. He laughs. A full-toothed grin you haven't seen in days. Outside, snow begins to fall again. Soft and lazy. The kind that makes the world silent. You stare out from the cave mouth, hands warmed by the fire, and think about what it means to make flame in a frozen world. It's not just survival. It's rebellion. You weren't meant to thrive here. Not, according to nature's math. But you are. Because you stole lightning. Because you made warmth out of rocks and hope, you toss another stick into the fire. And it hisses happily. For now, that's enough. Later that day, as smoke curls lazily upward and warmth settles into your bones, you hear the old storyteller muttering to the children. He says, fire came from a red bird that stole a feather from the sun and hid it in the mountains. That's why flames flicker like wings. One of the kids asks if the bird's still alive. The old man just shrugs and grins. All gums and mischief. Total nonsense. Probably, but a good story. You stretch out your legs and watch the firelight ripple across your toes. You remember how one of the hunters once got too close, his leggings caught fire, and he ran out of the cave screaming, pants smoking. Pride incinerated. He still hasn't lived it down. Every time he sneezes, someone makes a sizzling sound. It's become a running joke, even if he doesn't laugh. The fire helps with tools, too. Someone's charring the tips of spears to harden them. Another is boiling bones, to soften sinew for thread. The air smells like burnt wood, cooked fat, and earth. The smoke stings, but they say it keeps bugs and bad dreams away. You're skeptical but grateful anyway. That night, you're on fire duty. It's serious. Keep the flames alive till sunrise. You set dripping water as a timer. Every hour. You feed the fire. The shadows outside feel hungry. But every time you feed it, the dark shrinks. You stare at the embers. You see shapes, mammoth heads, faces, birds. They shift, vanish, beautiful in their way, fragile and fierce. Like everything else out here, before dawn, the sky turns deep blue. You're tired, smoke-stained, single, but the fire's still burning. And so are you. The wind stings like broken promises as you trudge forward, one heavy foot after the other. Your boots if. You can even call stitched-together scraps of hide boots are soaked through and beginning to freeze. Each step crunches on snow crust. But the ground beneath is uneven and sometimes gives way, revealing slush or sharp stone. Someone ahead of you groans as they slip. And you don't even look. You just keep walking. Because stopping, that's the worst idea of all. The tribe is moving again. Not because they want to. No one's out here sightseeing. But the food's gone dry. And the cave you just left behind is haunted by last week's smell of death. A child didn't make it through the cold snap. People whispered stories about angry spirits in the cave, how the fire wouldn't start right, how the meat spoiled too fast. Ice Age Yelp reviews, 1 star. Now, there's a mountain to cross. Or maybe it's a hill that just feels like a mountain when you haven't eaten anything solid in 2 days. Everyone's ribs are showing. Even the dogs look skinnier. You hoist your pack higher, trying to keep it from pulling at your shoulders. Inside it, the most precious cargo, firestone, a bit of dried fat, and your lucky flint. And maybe, if you're lucky, 1 mummified raisin at the bottom. You'll find it when times get really desperate. A few people hum as they walk. A rhythmic thing that keeps the feet going. You join in. It's not a song you know consciously, but your bones remember it. Something passed down like a genetic tune for staying upright. Behind you, one of the hunters stumbles. His knee is bandaged badly, and it's starting to bleed through. Someone helps him up without a word. Ahead, the snow lifts in sudden swirls, revealing a stretch of hard ground. Praise the mammoth gods. Flat terrain. For about 100 meters. Anyway, then it's back to the white churn of frost and fog. The air is so cold it makes your teeth ache when you breathe. This group you're with? They're not elegant. They're not noble. They fart in their sleep and pick their teeth with bird bones. But they've seen things live through storms that would make modern folks cry into their oat milk. They know how to scan the horizon for trouble. How to sniff out weak ice. How to smell snow like it's a threat. Because it is. Snow lies. You pass a boulder with strange red markings on it. One of the elders slows down and mutters something about it being a warning left by a different tribe. Maybe danger. Maybe territory. Maybe just graffiti. Historians still argue whether such markings were ritual, territorial, or just an Ice Age version of Kilroy was here. The line of people keeps snaking forward. Your thighs are burning. Your nose is running. And your stomach feels like it's begun eating itself out of boredom. You pull out a strip of hide to chew on. It doesn't help. You think longingly about roasted marrow bones. About the time you accidentally overcooked rabbit and everyone complained, and now you'd commit minor arson for a single overdone rabbit leg. As the sun begins to dip, which isn't saying much, since it never really rises properly this time of year, you see the scouts return. They're just dark shapes on the horizon at first, then gradually take form. 2 men, 1 woman, all covered in frost and looking grim. They stop the group with raised arms. There's a frozen lake ahead. The woman scout says between breaths, "Might hold, might not." Oh? You all gather like moths around a plan. Some argue for circling north, which adds days to the journey. Others want to risk it. Cutting straight across the lake could save food and energy. But if someone breaks through, that's it. No second chances with glacial water. In the end, the group splits. Half go around. You stay with the risk takers. Not because you're brave, but because you're tired and hungry, and gambling feels more noble than starving politely. A spear is tested on the ice. It holds. Then a dog. It whimpers, but walks across. A few people pray to no one in particular. You step onto the frozen lake like it's a god's back. The ice groans beneath you. Ah, long, drawn-out sound that shoots panic up your spine. Step. Wait. Step. Wait. Every movement feels exaggerated. You think about what's below darkness. Freezing death. Maybe some very confused fish. You don't, not today. By the time your boots hit earth again, your knees are shaking and your mouth is dry. But you're across. The fire starter pouch is still intact. That's what matters. That night, you camp beside a half-frozen stream. A circle of fire glows low as people curl up in their cloaks like snails in fur shells. One woman is braiding her child's hair. An act so gentle, it feels defiant in this brutal place. Someone else tells a story of a beast that lives under the glacier and listens to footsteps above. You pretend not to care, but you edge closer to the fire anyway. Your back aches. Your eyes itch. You look at the stars, counting them for comfort. Somewhere up there. Someone might be watching you. Or maybe it's just ice on the brain. In the middle of the night, a scream rips through the camp. You bolt upright, heart slamming. It's the hunter, with the bad knee, his legs cramping, and he's panicking in his sleep. Two others rush over, mumble something about spirits pulling at his feet. One of them spits into the fire 3 times. A habit. They swear wards off frost demons. You don't argue. It's 3 good spits closer to superstition. And, somehow, calm, quiets. But you can't sleep right away after that. You lie there watching the flames shrink, thinking how even strong people shatter out here. You remember one woman who simply sat down one day and didn't get back up. No illness, no wound, just stopped. Her eyes looked past everything, like she already saw the cave on the other side of life. The next morning, people move slower. A few arguments crackle louder than the fire. Someone accuses another of hoarding dried roots. Accusations fly. The elder settles it by splitting the roots into equal piles and staring down everyone with the weight of 7 frozen winters in his gaze. You lace your boots tighter and start walking again. Knowing this, in the Ice Age, survival isn't about glory. It's about stubbornness. The snow crunches under your feet. But this time, it's not migration. It's a hunt. A real one. Not squirrels. Not rabbits. Today, you're going after a mammoth. Yes, one of those shaggy, building-sized walking carpets with tusks like tree branches and a bad attitude. You clutch your spear tighter, already regretting your life choices. The herd was spotted 2 days ago, moving across the southern edge of the valley, tracks the size of soup bowls, steaming dung piles that could double as prehistoric Ottoman's clear signs. Scouts followed quietly, calculating wind and terrain. They've picked a spot, a narrowing between 2 icy ridges, perfect for a trap or a massacre. Could go either way. Your feet slide on loose snow as you approach the ambush site. Everyone's tense. Spears are sharpened. Nets made from braided gut are rolled and ready. Hunters smear ash on their faces to cut glare and, probably, look dramatic. You're not entirely sure if it helps. But hey, Ice Age fashion, the plan's simple. Use fire, kunwaz, and terrain to funnel the mammoths into a trap pit. The trap is camouflaged with branches, snow, and hope. At least 3 people have already fallen in by accident during setup. One guy broke a toe and now limps around yelling, "I am the bait." No one laughs, but everyone kind of does. Then comes the waiting. Hours of it. You crouch behind a snowbank, breath held, fingers frozen to your spear. Somewhere nearby, a child sneezes. Someone hisses. Another person passes a dried berry like it's a sacred offering. Then, finally, earth trembles. Distant at first, then closer, a low rumble. Then the unmistakable crunch of heavy feet on frost. You peek over the edge. There they are. Massive. Majestic. Smelly. Their fur is tangled and dusted with frost. Their eyes small. Intelligent. Suspicious. One matriarch stops and snorts, sending out a white gust that makes everyone freeze. If she smells you, it's over. A hunter bangs a bone against a stone. Another howls. Chows erupts. Hunters leap from hiding spots, waving torches, yelling like banshees. The mammoths startle. Most turn and run, but two charge straight ahead. The trap works. Sort of. One mammoth falls in, trumpeting rage. The other slows, slams its tusks into the pit's edge, and backs off. The one in the pit thrashes violently. Snow sprays. Someone screams. You join the fray, flanking left, trying to get a spear into its side. Easier said than done. The mammoth kicks up mud and snow, and a chunk of rock that nearly knocks out your front teeth. You jab. Your spear glances off a rib. Not deep enough. It's like stabbing a boulder wearing a shag carpet. Eventually, someone manages a good hit. Then another. It takes 8 of you. And you're all gasping by the end. When the mammoth finally collapses, it's less victory and more exhausted relief. You sit down in the snow, dazed. Your hands are shaking. Your arms feel like overcooked noodles. One of your spear tips is bent. You don't remember how, but then cheers. Real ones. The kind where people cry a little from joy. Food. Weeks worth. Maybe longer. If you don't mess it up. The elders quickly assign roles. Butchers go in first, flensing layers of hide and slicing through thick fat. You're given the job of hauling strips of meat back to camp. The sled is crude, just bark and rope, but it works. You slip a lot on the way back. At one point, you land face first in a pile of still steaming mammoth liver. You try to convince yourself it's good for the skin. Someone nearby mutters something about blood being lucky. You don't feel lucky. You feel cold, gross, and vaguely proud. At camp, fires roar. The smell of roasted meat hits you like a warm fist. People sing, loudly, off-key, but no one cares. A few kids dance. One slips and face plants in mammoth fat. It's adorable and horrifying. That night, the fire crackles with pride. You chew on thick meat, tougher than expected, but packed with flavor. Not bad for prehistoric cuisine. Someone's boiling bone marrow. Someone else is roasting tongue. A third person insists the ear is the best part. You're too tired to argue. Historians still argue whether mammoth hunting was common or more of a rare event. Something you'd celebrate like a national holiday, judging by the singing, dancing, and general giddiness. This counts as one. The tribe hasn't eaten this well in weeks, maybe months. You sit by the fire, wrapped in a fresh hide, gnawing at a chunk of meat the size of your hand. Smoke stings your eyes. Fat pops in the flames. A few hunters are already planning how to preserve the leftovers, drying racks. Smoke, tents. Salt, if they're lucky. The bones will be used for tools, art, and rituals. Nothing wasted. Not even the eyelashes. Later, you help carry a mammoth foot to the edge of camp, where it's being converted into a stew cauldron. Don't ask. It's working. Before bed, someone starts a slow chant, a wordless tune that drifts through the smoke. It begins with one voice. Then two. Then the whole camp joins in. Low and steady, like wind over ice. The kids crawl under fur blankets with greasy fingers and sleepy grins. Even the dogs look satisfied. sprawled near the bone pile, like kings. You glance across the fire and spot the elder with the cloudy eye. He's telling the story again, the one about the mammoth that turned into a mountain, how its spirit became part of the land. He marks the ground with a charcoal stick, drawing spirals and tusks. Some believe it, others just like the rhythm of his voice. You watch the flames dance. They crackle like applause. Somewhere behind you, the hunters are debating whether to dry the heart whole or slice it thin first. One suggests offering part of it to the ice, just in case the spirits need feeding too. Historians still argue whether Ice Age people saw meat as merely sustenance or something deeply spiritual. The fire pops, and someone laughs in their sleep. You pull the mammoth hide cloak tighter around your shoulders and sigh. Full belly, warm fire. A victory nobody died for. That's rare. You let your eyes drift closed and promise yourself you'll carve a tusk tomorrow. Not for trade. Just because you can. Just because you lived. You duck your head and step inside the cavern, blinking as your eyes adjust from the glare of snow to the dim amber glow of firelight. It's warmer in here marginally, but your nose instantly regrets the decision. The scent hits like a club. Sweat. Smoke. Vit fua. And something suspiciously meaty that's been sitting a little too long. You've smelled corpses that were more polite, but still, it's shelter. And that means something. Out there, it's all frostbite and hungry things with sharp teeth. In here, it's only the constant background noise of snoring, coughing, farting, and the occasional whispered argument over who stole whose fish jerky. You step over a sleeping dog, avoid a patch of mystery dampness, and drop your gear near the wall. Congratulations. You have arrived home. The cave isn't deep, but it's layered with use. Scorch marks from past fires, bones buried into the mud floor, scratched lines and symbols on the walls, some decorative, some maybe warnings. You don't know. Neither does anyone else. One drawing shows a man with 4 arms and a head shaped like a bear's, probably just someone with ambition and poor proportions. Historians still argue whether these were meant to be spiritual symbols or just bad storytelling. You find a place near the back, not too close to the drafty entrance. Not too near the fire where smoke will make you cry for hours. You lay down your hide, pat it flat, and try not to think about what crawled on it last night. Across the space, a woman is picking lice out of her daughter's hair with the precision of a jeweler. Nearby, someone is scraping something off a bone with their teeth. It's a song of survival, and the rhythm is gross. Every cave has its characters. The loud snorer currently rattling like a broken drum. The couple that argues about everything, even mammoth anatomy. The elder who doesn't say much but always seems to be carving something with a very sharp blade and a very distant stare. And, of course, the kids. Dozens of them, running in circles, shrieking, climbing over rocks, smearing soot on each other like it's body paint. You love them and hate them equally. The fire burns low in the center of the room. Someone's tending it with half focus, tossing in wood and dung with the occasional grunt. The smoke drifts up and hangs low before curling out through a narrow ceiling vent someone discovered generations ago. You breathe through your mouth and try not to taste it. One man near the fire is telling a story about a thunderbird that lives in the caves of the far mountains. It steals voices and replaces them with animal sounds. His point seems unclear, but everyone listens anyway. Better than silence. Which makes you too aware of your own stomach growling, or your boots still squelching faintly with melted snow. You start organizing your corner. Cloak folded. Spear propped. Pouch of dried bits tucked safely under your head. It's not a bed. It's barely a suggestion of one. But it's yours. You settle in, stretch out, and immediately regret it as something crunchy pokes your hip. Probably a forgotten bone chip, or someone else's tooth. A child sneezes, then another. Suddenly, everyone's worried it's the cough sickness again. Last time, 3 people died, and one elder blamed the cave itself. Said it was cursed by air spirits. Someone immediately spat on the wall and rubbed mud over the entrance. You know for protection. Can't be too careful when the germs are invisible, and your understanding of contagion is mostly based on who touched what and how recently they sneezed on you. Despite the stench, the crowding, the occasional scream when someone rolls onto a hot coal, the cave gives something invaluable. Routine. Predictability. A place where you're not moving. Not hunting. Just existing. You breathe it in. All of it. The grossness. The humanness. This is the smell of life refusing to quit. Someone hands you a warm bowl made from a hollowed-out skull. You don't ask whose. Inside is something like stew grease. Bits of root. Small chunks of meat. Possibly mouse. Possibly hope. It tastes like ash and satisfaction. You eat every drop. Later, you scratch your arms. Fleas again. You'll burn your cloak if they get worse. You already tried burying it in snow. But these little pests laugh in the face of cold. Someone nearby is cracking lice with 2 thumbnails and grinning every time they get one. You envy that level of optimism. 2 people begin arguing over sleeping space. Apparently one rolled into the other's leg. A fierce debate erupts. Accusations are made. Insults involving mammoth feet and bad teeth are exchanged. Finally, the elder with the knife sighs, tosses a bone in the air, and declares whoever catches it wins. They both miss. The argument continues in whispers. A dog farts loudly. Everyone pauses. The elder blames spirits. No one corrects him. As you settle in for the night, someone pulls out a flute made from a bird's wing bone. The notes are strange thin, reedy, but oddly soothing. A lullaby of the Ice Age. You let your eyes drift closed. The smoke coils above you like lazy ghosts. The warmth from the fire brushes your toes. Tomorrow will be another cold. Loud. Messy day. More noise. More smells. More flea bites. But also more stories. More laughter. Maybe even a fresh kill. Just before you fully drift off, you hear soft footsteps bear. Careful. A shadow moves past, carrying a pouch that smells unmistakably of dried mushrooms. The woman pauses, drops a pinch into the fire, and mutters something under her breath. You ask what she's doing. She shrugs and says it keeps the cave from dreaming bad things into the tribe. You nod like you understand. Farther across the cave, 2 people murmur in the darkness. They're talking about a place beyond the glacier, where the land is green, and water runs freely even in winter. You've heard the rumor, too. Everyone has. No one's seen it. Some say it's where the ancestors went when they got tired of hunting. Others say it's just what starving people imagine when soup is thin. You close your eyes again. The warmth of bodies nearby settles into your bones like a heavy blanket. You can hear someone quietly humming that same tune from the Mammoth Hunt-Soft. Rhythmic, stubborn, like a heartbeat that refuses to quit, somewhere deep in your sleep. The cave breathes with you. And you let it. Your cloak stinks. It's warm, but it reeks like a wet mammoth armpit. The fur is matted, the seams uneven, and there's a suspicious stain near your left hip that you don't want to talk about. But it keeps out the cold. And that's the only job clothes need to do out here. Fashion isn't dead. It just never existed. You're sitting near the fire, surrounded by scrapshide, sinew, bone needles, and thread made from reindeer gut. Your hands are cold, but you work anyway. Because your left sleeve tore during the last hunt, and you're tired of snowflakes sneaking into your armpit. Needlework isn't glamorous. It's stabbing yourself repeatedly until your clothing is held together by more blood than thread. You're not alone. Around you, half the camp is stitching, sewing, scraping. One woman's reworking her son's boots. Another man is threading beadstony carved bone fragments into a hairpiece that will probably get tangled before it's ever worn. One elder sharpens a needle from bird bone, while muttering about how kids today don't know how to fix a decent hole. You hold up your repair job. It's passable. One shoulder still droops like it's trying to escape your body. But the sleeve's attached. Progress. You reach for your fur capa, glorious thing stitched from hair pelts, edged in foxtail. It's lopsided and makes you look like a confused moose. But it keeps your ears intact. Clothes in the Ice Age aren't just protection. They're tools. Your boots are triple-wrapped hide, stuffed with moss for insulation. Your leggings are stitched with extra padding over the knees, because crawling through snowdrifts is apparently a lifestyle now. Your belt holds a knife, a pouch of salt, and 3 dried berries you're saving for either dessert or a bribe. Whichever comes first. Fashion choices are limited. It's fur, more fur, or nudity, and trust me, no one wants nudity. Not at these temperatures. There was that one guy who insisted on going all natural during the spring thaw. He lasted 5 minutes before the mosquitoes taught him a permanent lesson. You glance around at what others are wearing. One child has a hat that looks suspiciously like it used to be a squirrel, tail still attached. A hunter has layered so many pelts, he resembles a walking rug with ankles. Another woman is wearing what appears to be owl feathers as a cape. You ask if it's ceremonial. She shrugs and says, "It was looking at me funny." Historians still argue whether Ice Age clothing leaned more toward function or fashion. Did they decorate for beauty? Status? Or both? One thing's certain, nobody wore anything lightly. Every stitch was a decision. Every fur. A hunted life. You didn't just wear warmth. You wore the story of your survival. You reach into your pouch and pull out your sewing kit. It's a small roll of leather tied with sinew, inside of which are bone needles, a fish spinal, some waxed thread, and a carved wooden button you've never had the heart to use. It came from someone long gone. You keep it more for memory than function. Someone nearby curses loudly. Their sleeve tore again. You offer a spare thread and a nod of mutual understanding. Clothing isn't optional. Not here. Not ever. Outside. Snow whips past the cave entrance, like a sideways waterfall. You know tomorrow you'll be out in that again. And the thought makes you pull your furs tighter. You check the stitching on your leggings. Reinforce a seam. And quietly add an extra layer to your hood. Better safe than hypothermic. Someone starts a conversation about bone jewelry. One woman claims she once traded a carved bear tooth for 2 weeks' worth of dried fish. Another says her necklace was made from a hyena, jawbone gifted by a suitor she didn't even like. You laugh and share your own story. How you once gave a man a beautiful pair of rabbit fur mittens, only for him to lose them to a river and call it an offering to the fish gods. The conversation spirals into barter horror stories. One man once traded his entire winter cloak for what he thought was a magical stone. It turned out to be soapstone. Not magical, just heavy and cold. He still pretends it was worth it. That night, as the fire burns low, you line up your finished garments, patched cloak, reinforced boots, newly sewn mitten. You admire them like a painter would a finished canvas. Ragged, uneven, mismatched but yours. Made with your fingers, your tools, your stubborn refusal to freeze. You lay down to sleep, wrapped in every layer you own. You're not even sure where your tunic ends and your blanket begins anymore. You've become part of the fur, a walking, breathing, slightly itchy bundle of warmth, and somehow, against all odds, you're warm. Earlier in the week, you helped with hide tanning. Not glamorous. Tanning involves smoke, urine, scraping, and a tolerance for stench that borders on heroic. You spent hours hunched over raw skin, rubbing in animal brains which, yes, work as a natural softener and praying no one made eye contact while you did it. One woman swore that singing while scraping kept the leather supple. Another said it was just to keep her sane. Some families mark their clothes with Symbolsa-stitched spiral for long life. A zigzag to ward off frostbite. A tiny eye to keep the bad spirits from crawling into your boots at night. You tried it once. Your stitches looked more like a confused beetle. But the effort counts. You remember your uncle's winter coat, dyed with crushed berries, lined with wolf fur, and so thick it made him look twice his size. He called it his bear disguise. Claimed it made the mammoths trust him more. No one believed him. But he never got trampled. So maybe he was onto something. Even children have their Ice Age fashion statements. One girl insists on wearing a necklace made of mouse skulls. She says it helps her catch rabbits. Another wears mismatched boots because she claims it confuses the snow. Honestly, the snow probably is confused. As the night grows colder, you tuck your bone needle under your head like a charm and whisper thanks to the hides that gave their warmth. Your cloak may be ugly, but it's stitched with survival. And out here, survival is the best look of all. There's a high-pitched scream, followed by a loud thud, then a pause, then wailing. You don't even look up. Probably the third time today, someone's toddler has tried to climb the meat rack again. You keep walking. Reindeer hide sling over one shoulder. A bundle of frozen firewood bouncing awkwardly against your hip. Another scream. Another crash. Still no blood. Probably fine. The thing about living in close quarters with 30 or 40 other humans is that no one's child is just their child. If one throws a rock, everyone flinches. If one learns how to climb, suddenly, all the children are scaling cave walls like gremlins with frostbite. There's no such thing as babysitting here. It's more like crowd control with fur mittens and stale fish snacks. Your firewood bundle is heavier than usual. It's half willow, half driftwood scavenged from a frozen creek 2 days ago. The pieces creak as they shift. One nearly tumbles. But you adjust your grip before it crashes into the path. Wouldn't be the first time you dropped kindling on a toddler's head. Wouldn't be the worst thing either. They're surprisingly durable. You trudge back toward the cave, dodging a trio of barefooted kids, pelting each other with icy clumps of snow. One of them shrieks, "I'm a cave bear," and the others scream and scatter. Someone's going to lose a tooth. And someone else is going to pretend it was a sacrifice to the fire gods. Inside the cave, it's chaos. Controlled chaos. But still, children dart between legs, wrestle in corners, and make elaborate dirt sculptures of things that probably shouldn't have that many eyes. One little boy is wearing a basket on his head like a helmet and shouting instructions to an invisible army. A girl drags a bone sled behind her, half loaded with dolls made of wrapped moss and bird skulls. Ice Age Barbie is frankly terrifying. You unload the firewood and try to find a spot where no small humans are currently howling, shrieking, or chewing on a stick. It's harder than you'd expect. One tiny kid tries to help you stack the wood, then immediately drops a piece on his foot and howls like a wounded wolf. You pat his head, hand him a pine cone, and pretend it was all part of the game. You finally settle near the fire, watching a group of children try to reenact the mammoth hunt from a few days ago. One girl plays the mammoth. She's massive, strong, covered in patchy fur cloaks, and has 2 sticks tied to her head as tusks. 3 boys charge her with spears made of willow twigs. She roars and chases them into a pile of hides. It's the rabble, and slightly terrifying. Someone hands you a strip of dried fish. You chew slowly, eyes still on the kids. You wonder how they're not frozen, how they have so much energy in this miserable cold. But then, they've never known anything else. This is their playground. Their jungle gym is made of rock ledges and mammoth bones. Their slide is a frozen slope of mud. Their toys bite back. You remember when one of the children tried to ride a dog like a sled animal. It lasted 3 seconds. The dog bolted. The child screamed. The adults laughed until they cried. The dog now refuses to look anyone in the eye. Parenting here isn't about timeouts and gold stars. It's survival training. Kids learn how to gut a fish before they can spell fish, not that spelling is a thing. They learn which mushrooms make you sick and which make you dream about talking owls. They know how to stitch a wound, build a fire, and fight over the last scrap of dried squirrel. Historians still argue whether Ice Age childhood was shortened by necessity or simply different in structure. What's clear is this: these kids are wild, loud, sticky, and shockingly competent. One girl is carving a fishhook out of bone with more focus than most adults you know. A boy is explaining mammoth migration patterns with the authority of a 40-year-old. Another child is asleep with his foot in the soup bowl. Balance. As evening settles in, the energy shifts. The littlest ones curl up in laps and fur bundles. The older kids sit cross-legged around the fire as an elder tells a story about a snow spirit who eats naughty children but spares those who give it rabbit bones. You eye the kids as they shuffle closer to their parents and sneak bones under their sleeping hides, just in case. A lullaby begins, wordless and soft, carried by a grandmother with cracked lips and kind eyes. One by one, the children drift off, some twitching, others snoring. One, drooling into a wolf pelt, like he's claiming it as territory. The fire dims. Shadows dance. Peace, however, temporarily settles in. You stare into the flames, listening to the soft breathing of 20 tiny humans, bundled in chaos and love. Their presence is annoying, beautiful, and absolutely vital. You know the future's wrapped up in those grubby hands and snot-crusted noses. You scratch your arm, glance at your half-finished cloak, and smile. Maybe tomorrow you'll teach one of them how to sew, or at least how not to stab themselves with a bone needle. Progress. Later that night, one of the toddlers wakes screaming nightmare. Or maybe just cold toes. A mother scoops him up, wraps him in 3 layers of hide, and rocks him gently while humming. The fire pops. Someone mutters about dream spirits again. Another adult jokes that the spirits just wanted a quieter bedtime. Across the fire, 2 parents start quietly arguing about who forgot to tie up the drying boots. Turns out a child used them for a game involving mud and snowballs. Now they're soaked. Again, one adult suggests stuffing them with hot rocks. Another votes for moss and hope. No consensus. Just tired shrugs. One child rolls over and smacks another in the face mid-dream. No reaction. Both continue sleeping, tangled like a knot of fur and elbows. You stare, baffled, wondering how anyone sleeps through getting punched. Outside, a fresh snowfall begins, whispering against the stone like a lullaby in another language. Inside, the temperature drops slightly, and children instinctively snuggle closer to whoever's nearby. Little hands grab cloaks. Big arms pull them close. The air is thick with breath, smoke, and something like peace. You lean back, pull your own hide up to your chin, and feel a tiny foot kick your ribs. You sigh. Parenting by osmosis. You didn't sign up for this. But here you are, warmer than you'd be alone, and that's enough. You smell it before you see it. The rank, sour stench of wet fur, old blood, and something that smells like doom. Your goot tightens. Your toes curl inside your boots. Every hair on your neck votes unanimously for leave now. You freeze mid-step. Firewood bundle, half balanced on your back. The air is too still, too quiet. The birds are gone. Even the snow seems to be holding its breath. That's when you hear it. A low growl, deep and slow, like rocks grinding underwater. You turn your head, just enough to spot movement in the trees. Shadows flicker. Then, 2 golden eyes fix on you through the branches. You don't see the rest of it yet. You don't have to. You already know. Sabertooth. You've heard the stories. Everyone has. A creature as big as a bear, faster than a running deer, with fangs the size of your forearm and a mouth that could open wider than your worst childhood nightmares. The elders say it stalks like a ghost. Silent, until it wants to be heard. Sometimes it plays with you. Sometimes it doesn't. You take a slow step back. Another. The snow crunches under your heel like it's mocking you. The eyes don't move. Still watching. Judging. You're not even sure it's hungry. You just get the feeling it doesn't like your face. You whisper a curse under your breath and consider dropping the firewood. But that would mean turning around. Turning around feels like inviting death to tea. So you do the only thing that makes sense. You walk. Not fast. Not slow. Just consistent. Like you know exactly where you're going, and definitely don't have a predator eyeing you like you're a hot snack wrapped in fur. The trees grow thinner. You can just make out the edge of the camp ahead. Smoke. The sound of laughter. The illusion of safety. You reach for the small stone tied to your wrista charm carved with a saber-tooth fang shape, a gift from a shaman, supposed to ward off beasts. You mentally demand a refund. The growl comes again. Closer, this time. Louder. You don't look back. You can't. If it's behind you, you'll panic. If you panic, you're done. So instead, you break into a stiff jog. Not a run, just a really motivated walk. Your knees scream. Your spine buzzes. But the camp's there. Closer now. Then you hear it. Thudding paws. Charging. It's coming. You yell. Not words, just noise. Something primal. Something loud enough to alert the others and maybe confuse the saber-tooth for a second. It works. People rush out, brandishing spears and fire. You stumble into the snow circle, panting, wild-eyed. Behind you, the saber-tooth bursts from the trees and stops. It's magnificent and terrifying, as tall as your shoulder, with sleek muscle rippling beneath snow-speckled fur. Its eyes lock onto the group. One fang gleams like ivory lightning. It snarls and then it backs away, slowly, like it's bored, like it's made its point. Then it vanishes into the woods. No one breathes for a while. You collapse onto your knees, heart banging like a drum. Someone pats your back. Another offers you a strip of meat. A third just mutters, "Lucky," and walks off. You spend the rest of the day pretending everything's fine. You fix a spear. You scrape a hide. You try not to keep looking over your shoulder. But the fear lingers. That thing was close. Too close. And worse, it knew it. Later that night, the elders gather near the fire. One speaks of saber-tooths like they're part spirit, creatures that only appear when your soul needs testing. Another says they're just cats very large. Very rude cats. Someone else suggests they understand humans better than we think. You suggest they just hate you personally. Historians still argue whether early humans regularly clashed with saber-tooths or mostly avoided them. Judging by the tension in your shoulders, you think the truth lies somewhere between "we feared them" and "they actively toyed with us for sport." You sharpen your blade. You keep your torch close. You sleep with your spear across your chest and one eye half open. Just in case. And, in your dreams, 2 golden eyes blink slowly in the dark. Patient and amused. Still watching. After the saber-tooth disappears, no one really talks about it. Not directly. It's like naming it will summon it back. Instead, they act around it. Meat is cooked with extra ash, that night-and-old trick, meant to hide the smell of blood. Fires are kept burning brighter and longer. The children are told it was a spirit test. And one boy quietly asks if he failed because he wet himself. No one answers. One woman smears soot under your eyes, whispering something about confusing the predator. You nod and thank her like she's done you a favor. Even though you now look like a raccoon who lost a bar fight, you're told not to sleep near the entrance. Not because you'll be safer, just because it's someone else's turn. Rotating danger. Fairness. Ice Age style. That night, a group decides to do a noise warding. They grab drums-thin hides, stretched over wooden frame sand, beat them slowly, rhythmically, like the pulse of the earth. A few people hant. You join in, mostly to keep your teeth from chattering. It's cold, and fear is colder. An elder tells a story about a man who tricked a saber-tooth by pretending to be dead for 2 days, only to sneeze and get eaten anyway. Everyone laughs, but no one really thinks it's funny. The next morning, they ask you to mark the kill zones. If it comes back, you nod, grab some red ochre, and draw lines near the trees. Just in case the thing has manners and reads warnings, you add little fang symbols for emphasis. You're the saber-tooth magnet now, a nickname that comes with extra firewood duties and nervous glances, but also respect. You faced it. You lived. That's enough. You still check the tree line every time you step outside. You still feel watched. You probably always will. Later that day, one of the children ties 2 long sticks to their face, crawls through the snow, and growls dramatically. "I'm the saber-tooth," they yell. Another kid runs away shrieking with laughter. You watch from the side, half smiling, half nauseous. It's already becoming a story. Your story. Embellished. Exaggerated. Passed along, like a bone, knife sharpened at the edges. Polished with time. You hope no one else ever gets to add to it firsthand. The cave walls breathe stories. You notice it first when you roll over in your sleep and see a shape staring back a deer. Mid-leap. Its body curved in motion. Its hooves sharp against the stone. The firelight dances across the wall and makes it move. For a second, it almost looks alive. You blink, then smile. Another one to add to the collection. Everyone draws, some better than others. One man paints with crushed charcoal and red ochre, his fingers fast and sure, lines crisp and expressive. Another uses a stick to etch shapes into softer stone. Rough and awkward, but full of spirit. A kid once used chewed berries to smear something that looked like a mammoth with wings. You hope it wasn't a vision. You sit down near the wall. Cold stone pressing into your back. You reach for your own kit, a small pouch filled with dried ochre dust. Crushed charcoal. A hollow bone you use to blow pigment through like a primitive airbrush. You dip your fingers in ash and smear a line, then another. Slowly. The shape forms an animal. Maybe a bison. Maybe just a big idea. This is how you keep memory. Not on paper. Not in language. In pigment and pattern. These walls hold births, deaths, hunts, storms, fears, dreams. Some pictures are neat. others frantic. Some dark, some playful. All of them matter. One woman hums as she paints, a melody that loops with each stroke. She draws handprints firsters, then her children's. They form a ring around a curled-up mammoth, like it's being blessed or haunted. Hard to tell. A boy draws stick figures dancing under the stars. One elder adds symbols beside them, little spirals. Dots. A crooked V that might mean moon or might mean don't go here. Historians still argue whether these signs were warnings, celebrations, or just doodles during long winter nights. You make your mark. A spear. A bison. A crooked smile. It's not perfect, but it's yours. You blow pigment through the bone and feel a strange pride settle into your chest. It's proof. You existed. You saw. You felt. You recorded. Later, someone tells a story using the wall, points to a hunt drawn weeks ago, and says, "Here, this is where your father tripped on a root and scared the mammoth the wrong way." Everyone laughs. Another child adds a stick figure faceplant beside the mammoth to commemorate the blunder. History. Updated. Sometimes. The walls speak back. A painted bird appears in dreams. A newly drawn bear looks exactly like one seen the next day in the woods. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the wall listens and responds in its own language. You remember when the shaman drew a cave lion on the ceiling, eyes wide, fangs exaggerated, tail curled like fire. That night, lightning struck a nearby tree. Everyone agreed the picture, summoned it. The next morning, someone drew a fire next to the lion, just in case. Some people won't draw at all. They say it traps pieces of your spirit. One woman smudged out a picture of herself after a bad fever, insisting it had cursed her. You wonder about that sometimes. Staring at your own shaky bison. Is there a part of you stuck in it? Would future people see it and know you? Just a little? Drawing time is sacred. Even children get quiet. The fire dims. The cave feels smaller. Sojir. You hear only the scrape of tools, the whisper of pigment, the soft thud of a palm press against stone. It's not just art. It's ritual. Tonight, someone starts drawing a great spiral, bigger than usual. It winds up from the floor to the ceiling, full of little animals and humans walking its path. You ask what it means? The artist shrugs. Everything, he says. Or nothing. You stare at the spiral for a long time. Then add a little fox just outside the line. You don't know why. It just felt right. You fall asleep beneath the bison you painted, dreaming of hooves and wind and red dust in your eyes. And when you wake up, you swear the fox is smiling wider than before. Sometimes, when the walls get crowded, people layer new drawings over old ones. It's not disrespect, it's evolution. The mammoth from last year now has extra tusks and a helmet. A deer has been turned into some kind of mythical beast with wings and what might be shoes. No one remembers who started that trend. The cave smells of ash and damp hide, with an earthy tang of ochre and spit. The floor is uneven, slick in places. You shuffle carefully between wall sections, trying not to smudge someone's half-finished bear. That happened once. And the artist made you wear a squirrel skull hat for a week as penance. Honestly, not the worst fashion statement you've made. Tonight, one kid decides to draw a farting mammoth. You know because he announces it with glee. You glance over to see a majestic, well-proportioned beast, with little lines coming from its rear. You sigh. Art is sacred. Except when it's not. A debate breaks out over whether drawing a broken spear invites failure in the hunt. One elder insists it's just symbolic of hardship. Another says it's basically begging for your weapon to snap. They end up smearing the image with cold ashes. Problème saveux. Someone draws a cave with stars inside it, claiming it's a vision he saw during a fever. He says it means, this cave is special. A place where the sky touches the earth. People nod. No one questions it. Art makes room for that kind of belief. You notice an older woman adding tiny dots next to several animals red for prey. Black for danger. Yellow for only eat if desperate. A sort of Ice Age menu guide. You compliment her system. She says, I made it up just now. You believe her. But it's still brilliant. Hours pass. The fire burns low. A baby coos in its sleep. Your hand aches from gripping charcoal. And there's pigment under your nails and in your nose. You don't care. The wall in front of you is alive now, covered in stories. Laughter. Warnings. And wonder. And in the morning, when the fire's out and the cave breathes cold again, the walls will still whisper their quiet, painted truths to anyone who will listen. Sleep doesn't come easy out here, not really. It arrives in pieces, scattered and shallow, like snowflakes that melt the moment they touch your skin. The cave may be warm, the fire low and pulsing, like a steady heartbeat. But your brain never completely lets go. It watches, listens, waits for the crunch of snow that shouldn't be there. Or the growl that echoes wrong. You try to relax. You've done everything right. Your bedding of woven reeds and fur is tucked tight. Your back faces the wall, so no one can sneak up behind you. And your spear lies within reach. Your feet are close to the embers. Not too close. Just warm enough to keep from turning purple. Still, your body stays coiled like a snake, twitching with every whisper of wind or snore from a clanmate. Dreams begin slowly, as they always do. First, you're walking through tall grass, golden and soft, much too warm to be real. Then, a sound like fire, cracking, but when you turn, it's not fire, it's teeth, massive, dripping, bone, white. They're falling from the sky like hail. You run, but your legs don't move. You scream, but your mouth's full of snow. You jolt awake, sweating. Beside you, a child snores softly. Limbs flung in every direction, like someone dropped a sack of frogs. You stare into the fire and try to convince yourself the dream meant nothing, that it's just your brain playing mammoth bingo with your worst memories. Others dream too. One man mutters every night words from a language older than anyone still living. A woman whimpers in her sleep, hands twitching like she's sewing even in her dreams. The shaman says these are echoes from past lives, that our ancestors whisper through dreams. When the cold quiets the noise of the day, sometimes dreams bring warnings. Once, a boy dreamed of wolves circling the camp. The next morning, they found fresh tracks just beyond the firelight's reach. Another time, a woman dreamed of fire swallowing her arms. A week later, she burned herself trying to fix a torch. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic people believed dreams were divine messages or just brain static. But in here, surrounded by stone and fire and breathing bodies, it sure feels like dreams are something more. Something that doesn't care about logic. Or mercy. You drift again. This time, you're swimming through ice. Not in it through it. Cold wraps your arms, your legs, your lungs. Shapes move above you, people with antlers. Fish with eyes like stars. A mammoth walking upside down on the sky. It should be terrifying. It isn't. You feel calm. Until you hear the crying, you follow it. You surface from the ice like a fish breaching air, and find yourself in the cave, but not your cave. This one is full of shadows. And eyes. Hundreds of them. Some blink slowly. Some never blink. You move to speak, and wake, choking on your own breath. You sit up. The fire's still going. A woman nearby looks at you and nods. "Bad one?" she asks. You nod. She tosses you a piece of dried fruit. Eat something sweet. Keeps the spirits quiet. You chew silently. Eyes still flicking around the room like shadows might grow teeth. She's already gone back to sleep. You're not sure how she does it. Maybe she's made peace with the dreams. Maybe they've just stopped chasing her. There are rituals for nights like these. One is to chew on pine resin while whispering your worst memory. Supposedly, it traps the dream. Another is to draw it on the stone before it fades. You consider both. Then, settle for scooting closer to the fire and hugging your knees like they owe you protection. You hear another clanmate breathing heavily. Twitching. Trapped in their own shadow world. You consider waking them. You don't. Some journeys, even nightmare ones, must be walked alone. Tomorrow, someone will share their dream, and everyone will pretend not to be scared. Someone else will laugh too loud to prove it didn't get to them. You'll probably do both. But right now, in the flickering half-light of a dying fire, you feel very small, very awake, and very much watched by something you can't name, and that something is probably waiting until you close your eyes again. The next morning, as the sun tries weakly to push past the clouds outside, the clan gathers around the embers for what some call dream circle. It's not formal. No drumbeats or smoke. Just people passing around strips of dried meat while waiting to see who talks first. An old man speaks. His voice is cracked. "Bien sûr. I saw fire dripping from the stars." He says, "It fell on the trees. The sky turned black." A few nod slowly. Someone mutters that they smelled pine sap burning in their own dream. You wonder if they're just playing along. Or maybe the dream crossed tense. Then the shaman speaks. He always waits until others have shared. Like a final judge. He says the stars burning mean hunger is coming. That it's time to ration fat. That the spirits are angry with the hunt. Everyone groans. But no one argues. You instinctively check your pouch for jerky. Still there. For now, a girl describes floating above the cave and seeing everyone inside as glowing animal. Someone was a bear. Another, a raven, Someone was a frog. That starts an argument. No one wants to be the frog. She's forced to assign second choices. You end up as a lynx. Could be worse. There's a superstition about dreaming of teeth falling out means someone will die. One man jokes that if that were true, half the cave should be dead already. He's missing 3 teeth himself. The laughter is weak. No one really wants to tempt the dream gods. To close the circle, everyone tosses a pinch of ashes onto the fire, while whispering a word, sometimes of fear. Sometimes a hope. You whisper, "Quiet," though you're not sure if you mean inside your head or outside the cave. Later, you catch a child, drawing stars, dripping black ink across the wall. You ask why. They say, "So the stars remember not to do it again." You nod like that makes perfect sense. Honestly, maybe it does. You wake up with a mouthful of wool and a tunic stuck to your back. Welcome to Ice Age fashion wear style meets survival. And everything smells faintly of smoked reindeer. You peel yourself out of your sleepwear, which is basically a patchwork of hide, fur, and the occasional strip of woven grass that someone swore added flair. Sure it does. If flair means itching in places you can't reach, first thing you do is check your boots. Not for style, though. You did add that little shell on the side last week, but for ice, frozen boots mean frozen toes. And frozen toes means someone else gets your mammoth meat when they fall off. You knock them out. Shake out any creepy crawlies. And slide your feet in. They squish a bit. Never a good sign. You add more moss. Fashion here is functional. You wear layers like onions. Wear secrets. Undergarments made from soft rabbit hide, if you're lucky. Squirrel if you're not. Outerwear includes mammoth hida, stitched crudely but lovingly, with sinew thread and the occasional random bead sewn in like a forgotten thought. No one admits who added the beads, but you suspect it's that woman who hums while she paints. Her tunic has more accessories than a modern pop star. You sling on your belt a thick strip of leather with pouches for flint, dried berries, and one extremely questionable mushroom you're saving for emergencies. You grab your cloak, heavy and stiff from last night's frost, and tie it across your shoulders with a bone toggle that belonged to your uncle. Or possibly someone else's uncle. It's hard to keep track. Everyone customizes. One man has feathers tied to his sleeves that flutter dramatically every time he walks. Completely impractical. He claims it distracts enemy. You claim it distracts common sense. A woman wears a necklace of carved teeth, mostly wolf. One, suspiciously human. She says it's lucky. No one argues. Children are the most creative. One wears a hat shaped like a bison head, complete with stick horns. Another wears nothing but a loincloth and war paint made of crushed berries, because apparently the cold can't catch fast people. That logic ends in sneezing fits. Scent is a constant battle. You try to mask yours with smoke, pine resin, or crushed mint leaves if you find any. But mostly, you all smell like slightly burnt animal. One man once tried rolling in wild garlic. It worked, until everyone else made him sleep near the entrance. Historians confirm that Ice Age humans developed regional dress codes based on materials available: fur, bone, even bark in some areas. but scholars still debate whether some accessories had social meaning or were just because it looked cool. Oh. You spot a woman braiding bear fur into her leggings. When you ask why, she shrugs. Warmth, she says, then winks. And it makes me look fierce. Honestly, it kind of does. Fashion also serves as identity. Hunters wear red ochre streaks across their cheeks. Healers tie tiny bones into their hair. The shaman wears a full bird skull mask during rituals creepy, but effective. You've worn it once. Vision was terrible, but your voice sounded much more mysterious. Tailoring is a community event. Someone's always scraping hides, softening them with urine or brains. Yes, brains. And cutting them to shape with stone tools so blunt, you're amazed they cut anything. Sewing is done with bone needles. Each one a prized possession. You once dropped yours down a crack in the cave floor and mourned like it was a lost pet. One woman invents a new stitch. Tighter. Warmer. She demonstrates proudly, then demands everyone learn it. She's now the needle. A few try to imitate it and fail miserably. You try and end up stapling your sleeve to your leg. Smooth. There's also a fashion hierarchy. Elders get the thickest cloaks, the best furs. Children get hand-me-downs, so patched they look like walking puzzles. You're somewhere in the middle, just high enough to claim new mittens, just low enough to still get blamed if the communal drying rack collapses. You adjust your fur collar. It scratches, but it's better than freezing. You admire a particularly smooth seam on your sleeve and feel strangely proud. It's easy to forget, under all the hunting and survival, that you made this with your own fingers, one stitch at a time. And even if it reeks, it's yours. Every few weeks, there's a collective wash, day loosely translated to drag your clothes to the stream and hope nothing freezes solid. It's a chaotic scene. People scrubbing fur with sand and ash. Kids trying to wash tunics while sneakily splashing each other. One man's hide pants float downstream. And for months afterward, he's nicknamed Bare Thighs. To dry, everyone spreads garments near the fire, propped on sticks like strange meat. The cave ends up looking like a boutique run by wolves. You once leaned too close to check if your shirt was ready and singed your fringe. Now, you have fashion bangs, which others pretend to admire, just to keep the joke going. There are tricks to staying warm. Some stuff moss into sleeves or wrap heated stones in leather and tuck them inside their boots. Others swear by layering rabbit hide with feathers. One woman sleeps with 3 dogs and calls it her living blanket. You tried it once and woke up smelling like wet fur and regret. Accessories aren't just flair, they're survival. A band of hide around the wrist isn't just decoration. It holds your flint scraper. That necklace of bone, also a whistle. Fashion here. Multitasks. You even made earrings once. Tiny slivers of shell, tied with sinew. They lasted 2 days before a curious toddler ate one. Your favorite item is a scarf made of twisted sinew and softened bark fibers, dyed with crushed berries. It itches, stains your neck pink, and smells like old stew. But it was a gift from the woman who taught you to stitch. You wear it anyway. Avon warriors need sentiment. Later that night, someone farts while wearing a fur onesie and blames the garment. It's the musk, They insist. No one buys it. The laughter echoes off the walls for a solid 10 minutes. Even the shaman giggles. And he once claimed laughter angers the ice spirits. Apparently. Not tonight. And as you curl into your bedroll, wrapped in every layer you own, you realize you might look ridiculous, but you're warm. And that's what counts out here. Fire is your god now. Not in a divine sense, though, honestly. It gets treated like royalty, but in the way your every waking moment revolves around keeping it alive. Warmth, cooking, protection, light, Ave Morale. It all flickers on those orange tongues. No pressure. Your clan guards it like a treasure. The fire pit in the center of the cave is more sacred than the shaman's mask. More precious than the chief's mammoth bone club. Every night before sleep, someone double checks. It's fed enough wood. Dung. Or anything burnable. In winter, a careless fire tender might get demoted to ash fetcher. It's not an official title. But people remember. You wake to its smoky perfume in your hair and go to sleep with sparks still dancing behind your eyelids. Getting too close means singed eyebrows. Too far, and your toes turn into meat popsicles. Fire maintenance is an art, and you're no Picasso. Once, you tried to stir it with the wrong end of your spear. Your new nickname? Charcoal. There's a designated firekeeper each day, usually someone too injured or clumsy to hunt, but still trustworthy enough not to nap on duty. You've had your turn. 4 hours of squatting, poking, blowing, shielding from wind gusts. One kid once sneezed near it and nearly caused an ember revolt. You've never forgiven him. Flint is life. Without it, you can't spark. Without spark, no fire. Without fire, goodbye. You keep a backup flintstone in a pouch tied to your belt. Another hidden near the back of the cave. And one more under your sleeping mat. Yes, it's paranoia, but a justified one. Historians note that some Ice Age people carried embers with them on journeys, wrapped in dry moss or dung, just to avoid starting from scratch. Some even created slow-burn bundles to keep heat alive for hours. Smart and slightly terrifying. Cooking is an entire social event. You hang hunks of meat on sharpened sticks, watch fat drip into the flames, and inhale enough smoke to smell like a campfire for 3 days. Someone always pokes the food too early. Someone else always drops it. There's an art to cooking mammoth shoulder, just right crispy at the edges. Warm in the middle. Not entirely raw. You haven't mastered it. And there's fire gossip. Did you see how bright the flames were last night? Means a storm's coming. Or someone angered the spirits. Or we're just burning extra pine. Fire is a weather forecaster. A Rumorstatter. A therapist, children are warned never to play too close. So naturally, they do. One kid once tried to roast a beetle and ended up with flaming moss hair. He's fine. The hairstyle, less so. Now, he wears a cap stitched from rabbit fur. They call him Sizzle. Every few weeks, the fire is ritually fed with something special. A handful of herbs. A bone painted with ochre. Once, someone tossed in a decorated shell and claimed it would bring better hunts. That night, 3 traps snapped shut, empty. Interpret that however you like. Scholars still debate whether Ice Age people viewed fire as a spiritual being or simply a tool. But when you watch your clan gather around it, faces lit, eyes half-lidded, hands reaching out as if toward an old friend, you lean toward spiritual. Sometimes, people talk to the fire, not in madness. Just a bit. A whispered complaint. A nervous joke. A song, half-hummed. It listens, or at least pretends to. And sometimes, that's enough. You've seen fire used in rituals. The shaman tosses strange powders into it, causing green sparks or sudden whooshes of light. People gasp. Children squeal. The shaman looks smug. You asked once what he used. He said, magic. You found out later it was crushed roots and a pinch of dried frog. Still pretty magical. And in the darkest months, when the wind howls and even mammoths look cold, the fire is more than survival, it's sanity. It's the heartbeat of the cave. When you stare into it too long, you see faces, shapes, stories. You swear you saw your mother once, smiling through flame. You didn't tell anyone. Tonight, you sit close, hands stretched out, fingers kissed with heat. The fire spits and hums. Someone sings softly a lullaby, meant to keep the embers calm. You close your eyes, listening to both the melody and the hiss of burning wood. There's comfort here, in this ancient orange glow. And for a moment, nothing else matters. Once, the fire almost died. A snowstorm blew in while half the clan was out foraging. The cave mouth filled with drifting snow, and the wind tunneled through like a giant angry breath. The firekeeper panicked, fed it damp moss, and ended up choking it into silence. When everyone returned, the fire was a sad pile of black sticks. You remember the quiet that followed pure terror. Unspoken. The shaman pulled out emergency embarrassed woe tiny clumps, barely glowing, wrapped in birch bark and stored in a carved antler tube. Everyone held their breath. He blew gently, adding, Driedlichen, whispering to it like it was a child. After what felt like forever, the ember caught. The flame returned. People cried. You cried. You'll never forget it. There's a tradition called ember songs. People sing them while adding wood, hoping their voice keeps the fire awake. The tunes are simple and rhythmic, like heartbeat chants. One goes, don't go cold. Little flame, we need your breath. Another involves nonsense words and a melody stolen from bird calls. No one remembers who invented them. They're just known. You try singing one tonight. Your voice cracks a little, but the flame flares gently. A few others join in. The cave hums with warmth and music. Even the dogs settle down. There's a funny superstition that says, if you sneeze 3 times near the fire, you have to run around the cave backwards, or it'll turn on you. Someone tried to skip the ritual once. The next day, he stepped in his own poop pile while half asleep. You draw your own conclusions. Fire-starting stories are passed down like heroic tales. Your uncle once claimed he lit a fire with nothing but 2 rocks and a dirty look. Another clanmate swears she sparked one in the rain by catching lightning on her spear. No one believes her. But it's a great story. Tonight, as you drift off by the fire's edge, It cracks in that familiar, soothing way. Not angry, not hungry, just alive. And as long as it lives, so do you. Today is Mammoth Day. You've been prepping for this all week, sharpening spears, practicing throws, trying not to let your knees buckle every time someone says, "Just don't get trampled." Helpful advice. Really, the mammoths are moving south again, following some ancient map only they can read. They pass through this valley once, maybe twice a year, and the clan depends on that window like it's payday. If you miss it, you miss meat. Fat, hide, bone, and pretty much your chance of not starving to death by next moon cycle. At dawn, you and the others smear yourself with mud to mask your scent. It's freezing. You hate every second of it. But you also don't want to smell like a warm snack. The group moves out quietly, everyone fanned in a jagged line along the ridge. No one talks. Not even the loud hunter, with the laugh that could wake glaciers. This is sacred, dangerous, and potentially very stupid. You spot them from the ridge-massive shaggy shapes lumbering across the plain below. Plumes of mist curling from their trunks. Their backs hump like hills. Their tusks glint like bleached scythes. Woolly mammoths. Bigger than you imagined. Slower than you hoped. One calf stumbles a little, and a few hunters nudge each other. Calves are easier. Calves don't turn you into cave paste when you miss your shot. The plan is basic. Funnel the herd toward a narrow ravine. Spook them with noise. Corner one. Jab it with enough spears until it gives up or goes down. Simple. Brutal. Ice Age logic. As you move into position, your heart starts galloping. You grip your spear tighter. You're sweating. Despite the cold, the ground thumps faint. But steady. They're close. A shout breaks the silence. Someone bangs rocks together. The herd jolts. The chase begins. They run faster than you think something that size should. Snow explodes under their feet. You sprint alongside the others, trying not to think about the boulder-sized footfalls just yards from your left ear. A massive bull veers left. Good. The calf is heading toward the ravine. That's your target. You raise your spear. Wait. Aim. And you miss. The spear skims its haunch and sticks into a tree. Useless. The mammoth lets out a sound, somewhere between a trumpet and a scream. Terrifying. It wheels toward you for one horrible second, then decides you're not worth the energy. You exhale and sprint for cover. Someone else lands a hit. Then another. Blood steams in the cold. The calf stumbles. It goes down. The mother bellows. But the rest of the herd keeps moving. It's done. The hunt is over. You collapse near a bush and try not to throw up. Your hands are still shaking. When you return to the cave, the mood is electric. The shaman sprinkles ochre over the carcass. People touch it reverently. The mammoth is not just food, it's power. Protection. Proof. Its hide will line beds. Its fat will feed the infants. Its tusks may become art or tools or both. Every bit is sacred. You say thanks, even if you don't know who you're thanking. Historians widely agree that Ice Age peoples revered the mammoth, even depicting them in cave art across continents. But some scholars still argue whether these animals were seen primarily as prey, symbols, or even spiritual beings. Tonight, you help skin it. The fur is thick, oily, tangled with ice. Your arms ache. Your stomach grumbles. You spot the woman who always sings while she works. She hums something soft and ancient as she pulls fat from bone. You hum along. Later, you chew on a strip of steaming mammoth meat. It's tough, a little smoky, but the best thing you've tasted in weeks. Someone jokes about naming the next calf after you. Since you scared it so badly, you throw a snowball at them. Miss again. Typical. You remember a story the old hunter once told back when he still had most of his teeth and didn't repeat himself. He spoke of a mammoth stampede that wiped out half a clan. Not this only an older one. Before your time. He described the thunder of hooves, the tremble in the ground, the screams, how the air filled with snow and blood. We were fools, he said, and the mammoths reminded us. You thought he was exaggerating. Now, running beside one, you're not so sure. Each step shakes the ground like a drumbeat from something ancient. When one trumpets, it's like standing beside a waterfowl out. Wet. And absolutely humbling. You're not the apex predator here. Just a clever, cold little monkey with sharp sticks and a lot of hope. During the chase, you catch a glimpse of the calf's eye. Wide. Confused. You expect rage. Instead, it looks tired, sad, and that stays with you. Even after it's brought down, the kill itself is fast, but not clean. It staggers, hits a rock, and slumps. One last groan of air wheezes from its trunk like a broken flute. Then nothing. No one cheers. Not really. A few quiet pats on backs. A nod from the shaman. Silence. Mostly, you all feel the weight of what you've done. Necessary. Yes, but heavy. The elder limps up and places a hand on its flank. He closes his eyes, mutters something in the old language, and draws a single red line across its side with ochre, a mark of thanks. Maybe forgiveness. No one dares interrupt. Later that night, when the meat is cooking and the younger kids are poking the leftover trunk with sticks, you sit apart. You keep replaying the look in the calf's eyes. Not out of guilt. Exactly this is survival, but something else. A weird blend of sadness and awe. You glance at the fire. It burns bright tonight, fed with mammoth grease and reverence. You imagine the calf's spirit curling upward with the smoke, weightless and warm. And maybe, just maybe, a little forgiving. The next morning, you find the tusks have been propped against the cave wall, cleaned and ready. The shaman's already at work with a flint chisel, carving spirals and lines into the curve of one. This one holds storm magic. He mutters, "We need wind to pass quickly." Whether he believes that or just likes to carve is unclear. But the ritual matters. Kids collect bits of fur to stuff into their tunics. Someone shapes a giant foot bone into a stool. You pass a young boy tracing the calf's footprint left in the snow. He presses his own foot beside it. Not even close. Later, you sit by the bones, clean and sun-bleached now. You rest your palm on one long, heavy, almost warm from the day's light. You whisper a soft thank you. The wind shifts. Maybe it hears. And maybe that's enough. Your hands are stained red today. Not with blood. Not this time, but ochre. Fine. Crumbly. Iron-rich dust. Ground into a paste with spit and animal fat. You swirl it around in a cracked shell bowl, stirring until it clings to your fingertips like melted rust. Across the wall, to light from the fire flickers on half-finished paintings. Deer with 2 long legs. Men with spear hands. Spirals that seem to move if you squint. You're on art duty now. Not exactly your strong suit, but you volunteered to avoid scraping marrow out of mammoth joints. And to be honest, there's something strangely peaceful about it. The older woman leading the mural hums quietly as she mixes charcoal and ash, her fingers quick and practiced. Don't worry if it's ugly. She tells you, if the spirits want pretty, they'll paint it themselves. You press your palm against the stone, fingerspleil, and spit ochre around it. When you pull your hand away, there's a red ghost left behind. It looks like it's waving. You grin. Everyone has their theory about the art. Some say it's to honor the spirits. Others say it helps with the hunt-draw the animal. Catch the animal. A few think it's just something to do when you're snowed in for 6 days and the fire smells like old socks. Historians still argue whether Ice Age cave art was ritualistic, educational, or just really committed doodling. You step back and admire a reindeer someone else painted. The legs are too long. The antlers wildly oversized. But it dances on the stone like it's alive. The artist, just a girl. Barely past 10 winter's shrugs. That's how I saw it in my head. She says, fair enough. The paints are made from crushed mineralsucker for red and yellow, charcoal for black, ground bone, and ash for white. Occasionally, someone mixes in spit, egg, or even blood. If they're feeling dramatic. One man insists his best bison mural used bear urine. No one asked how he got it. You try your hand at an abstract shape. It ends up looking like a frog falling down a hill. The old woman nods approvingly. Very symbolic. She says, you don't ask what it symbolizes. Better to leave some mystery. The process is slow. You blow pigment through reeds for shading. Scrape away parts with bone picks. Smear with moss for texture. It's like painting with a stick of butter and a handful of dirt. But the results are weirdly beautiful. Some of the paintings are layerdalled, shapes drawn over newer ones. A horse under a mammoth. A man with a spear drawn through a serpent. You wonder what that means. A warning? A memory? Or did someone just run out of space? There's one section of wall no one touches. It's full of strange shape circles inside circles. Figures with no eyes. The shaman says those came from the dreaming time, which either means visions or mushrooms, or both. You stare at it a while and feel uneasy, like the wall's watching you back. Quirky detail? There's a drawing of a giant fish with legs. Everyone swears it's not theirs. It just appeared one day. Some say it's a joke from the ancestors. Others think it's the reason one man keeps dreaming about drowning in soup. You take a break and stretch your hands. Your fingers ache. Your nails are stained. Across the fire, two kids are painting each other's faces with leftover ochre, giving themselves spirit masks. They look ridiculous. You love it. A theory someone once whispered in your ear, that the cave art is a language, not stories. Not prayers, but a code. Symbols that only the stars can read. You didn't understand it then. But tonight, as you trace a line of red across the wall, you wonder if every mark is a sentence. If your handprint just said, "I was here." Amber. Later, when everyone's asleep, you wander back to the wall and add one last thing, a spiral. Tucked low, near the edge. Just yours. Just in case someone finds it in 10,000 years and wonders what it meant. Maybe they'll see it and think, this was a person who loved stories. Who survived. Who mattered. As the firelight sways, the entire mural wall seems to ripple. Someone starts humming a low, soft tune with no words. Another picks up a bone flute and adds a few off-key notes. The cave turns into a quiet gallery, where every flicker of light makes the drawings breathe. You settle cross-legged beside a boy sketching something with charcoal. "What's that?" you ask. "It's the thunder moose," he says confidently. You nod, as if that's a perfectly normal thing. The weirdest painting of the night belongs to one of the quieter hunters. He rarely speaks. But tonight, he's painted a towering man with tree limbs instead of arms, and antlers growing out of his face. "That came to me in sleep," he murmurs. The shaman studies it and just says, "Ah." No further explanation. No one presses. Someone begins to tell the story behind one of the older drawings, the bison with a broken leg, drawn near the floor in black smudges. It's said to represent a real hunt, long before you were born, where a boy your age chased too far and was gored. He bled out under the stars. His father painted the bison that night, using his son's blood. Some say that's why it still looks wet. The story hangs in the air. Even the fire goes quieter. You notice a few people touching the drawings gently as they pass, like they're brushing the cheek of someone long gone. Others avoid eye contact with the wall entirely, as if afraid it might speak. One woman claims she saw a horse blink once. No one believes her. But everyone remembers. By the end of the night, your arms are sore, your legs numb, your head buzzing with symbols. You've added 3 more handprints, 2 spirals, and one very wobbly cater. Maybe it's a bear. No one's sure. Either way, it's now part of history. You fall asleep under the mural wall. Your back to the stone. Your dreams, full of red ghosts and stick-legged reindeer. And the last thing you hear is the fire whispering stories to the walls. Your stomach growls so loudly today it scares a bird out of a tree. Someone laughs. You don't. Because food doesn't just appear. You have to hunt it. To diet, chase it, smoke it, or occasionally steal it from something smaller and slower than you. Welcome to Ice Age cuisine. Breakfast is whatever didn't go bad overnight. A strip of dried meat. Probably bison. Though you're not betting your life on it. It's tough as wood bark and twice as salty. You gnaw on it like a dog with a grudge. Someone else has a handful of frozen berries. They crunch like pebbles, but taste like tiny bursts of summer. A luxury. Once you're done with the not-quite meal, it's off to forage. You head toward the half-frozen stream, poking at the dirt with a bone stick, looking for edible roots. Tubers are a godsend. Earthy, bland, and oddly satisfying when roasted. One time, someone found one the size of a newborn mammoth foot. You celebrated like you'd found gold. Well, edible gold that tastes vaguely like old socks. There's also mushrooms. The good ones. The okay ones. And the ones that make you see dancing mammoths. You've learned to tell the difference the hard way. The shaman once ate the wrong one and tried to marry a pine cone. Now, there's a Rulino solo mushroom picking. Someone yells. It's the gathering team. They've found a beehive. You sprint over just in time to watch a poor soul get stung trying to smoke it out with a bundle of smoldering moss. Worth it. Though, Ice Age honey is liquid happiness. Sweet. Sticky. Full of bee legs. Nobody cares. Midday means cooking. A fire is built. Embers arranged. And meat goes on sharpened sticks. Today, it's something small, maybe hare. Maybe fox. It still has a paw. You don't ask questions. Fått Sleepless. The smell makes your brain hum. Historians note that Ice Age diets were remarkably diverse: meat, fish, plants, peanuts, seeds. But archaeological debates continue over just how much raw versus cooked food was eaten. You prefer the cooked stuff. Less surprised that way. You help crush dried berries into a mush with snow and leftover tallow. It becomes a paste that sticks to your fingers and your soul. It's weirdly good. Someone calls it power goo. You just call it lunch. For dessert, someone found bird eggs in a rocky hollow. You roll them gently in hot ash to cook. One pops. You eat it anyway. Crunchy. Suspiciously crunchy. A beak. Maybe? Let's not talk about it. Dinner is communal. Everyone gathers around the fire. The meat is sliced. Shared. Chewed loudly. There's not much talking, just grunts of approval. Sighs of satisfaction. And the occasional joke about who's going to get stuck with the bones. You are. Bone marrow is prized. You crack the femur with a rock and suck the inside out. Warm. Greasy. And oddly comforting. Like drinking hot fat soup with a stick. Not for the faint of stomach. But it keeps you alive. Afterwards, someone passes around pine needle tea. It tastes like boiled tree but makes your throat feel clean. You sip it slowly. Watching the embers pop, a child drops their bowl, and it rolls into the fire. The adults pretend not to laugh. You end the night with a full belly. Or at least, not an empty one. That's as close to happiness as it gets around here. You stretch, burp, and wonder what tomorrow's mystery meat might be. Hopefully not squirrel again. You're still finding fur in your teeth. You try fishing in the late afternoon. The ice-crusted stream isn't generous. But you jab a sharpened stick through a hole and wait. And wait. And shiver. You almost nod off, standing up. Then, finally movement. A flash of silver. You strike. Nothing. Just a wet stick. But your cousin manages to spear a trout the size of a child's arm. And suddenly, he's a hero. The fish flaps wildly before it's bonked with a rock. It dies nobly, Into the stew it goes. You attempt to gather nuts later, hoping for a few of the buttery ones. Instead, you find a whole stash that some clever squirrel had buried. Jackpot. Until you bite into one and nearly break a molar. Turns out they've frozen solid. You give up after the fifth one turns your lips purple. You donate the rest to the fire. Even it seems unimpressed. Food isn't just fuel. It's tradition. There's an unspoken rule. Whoever catches the meat gets the first bite. But they always share the best piece with someone else. Usually a child. Or the old ones. One woman always gives the choicest slice to the dogs. She says it makes their dreams sweeter. No one argues. At night, the shaman sometimes reads the fire like a cookbook. He tosses herbs into the flames and sniffs dramatically. Tonight, Ed declares, we flavor the stew with ash, smoke, and moss heart, which means he found something green and isn't sure if it's edible. You eat it anyway. Tastes like burnt wet towel. But your stomach doesn't rebel. So it's a win. Someone's grandmother once baked tubers inside a hollowed-out log filled with hot stones and birch bark. The result was crispy, heavy, and weirdly sweet. She called it sun food, even though it never saw daylight. You wish she'd taught someone how to do it before she passed. No one can quite replicate the magic. Late tonight, someone sneaks a sliver of dried meat into your hand while you're dozing by the fire. No words, just a gesture. You nod. It's the soft kind, seasoned with salt and something smoky. You chew slowly, gratefully. Even a tiny bite means something. Because in the Ice Age, every meal is a story. And tonight, yours ends with salt on your lips, warmth in your chest, and maybe just my Benno's squirrel fur. You drift off thinking about honeycomb, fat stew, and the last berry of summer. Food dreams. The best kind. The cold tonight is not just cold, it's personal. Like the wind has memorized every chink in your furs and is whispering mean things directly into your bones. You can't remember the last time your toes felt like toes. Now they're just abstract ideas. You huddle near the fire. But the warmth only reaches as far as your skin. Inside, you're still an icicle with a heartbeat. The logs crackle, spit, and settle. Embers pulse like tiny red eyes, watching from the ash. Someone adds another chunk of mammoth dung to the flames. The smoke is thick, weirdly sweet, and stings your eyes. But no one complains. It burns hot, and hot wins. You've been assigned fire duty tonight. That means staying up while everyone else sleeps, making sure the blaze doesn't die, and resisting the siren song of sleep. You poke the fire with a stick, feeling important and also vaguely resentful. The stars outside are ridiculous, like a frozen ceiling of diamonds. The moon's fat and low, tinting the snow silver. You step out briefly, just to pee, and immediately regret it. Everything clenches. Everything. You scurry back in before your eyelids freeze shut. Your breath forms slow clouds. You blow on your fingers, tuck them under your arms, and try to recall warmth. It's a distant memory, a myth. Someone rolls over in their sleep and mumbles something about soup. You envy their dreams. Back at the fire, you flip a log and watch sparks dance upward. The shaman says those sparks are the voices of ancestors rising to the sky. You believe him just enough to not spit in the flames. Historians note that Ice Age humans likely relied heavily on fire not just for warmth, but for cooking, warding off predators, and social bonding. Some researchers argue it was fire, not tools, that truly made humans dominant. Others say we just got lucky with flammable dung. You hear a noise outside. A soft crunch. Maybe a fox. Maybe worse. You stare into the dark. Every nerve alert. Then, nothing. Just wind through trees, and your own too loud heartbeat. You grab another armload of fuel and stoke the fire. The flames roar back, licking the blackened stones, painting everything with that familiar orange flicker. You feel less alone. Someone wakes up, grunts, pulls a fur tighter, then slumps back down. You envy that. To stay awake. You hum quiet tunes. No sans song. You count the logs. You tell the fire your secrets. You tell it you miss the sun. You tell it you're not sure your nose is still on your face. And maybe the fire listens. Eventually, dawn begins to bleed into the sky, first gray, then blue. The stars fade. The air stays frigid, but the promise of light makes your chest feel a little less tight. You've made it through another night. One more bone-shattering. Frostbitten. Blink too slow, and UD night. And that feels like a win. You stir the ashes gently and smile when a fresh ember winks back. Still alive. Still burning. Behind you, the rest of the clan is tucked into a careful pile of limbs and furs. It's not elegant. Someone's foot is on someone else's head. And the snoring is orchestral, but it's functional. Layered bodies trap heat. The older ones insist it's how the wolves do it. You believe them, mostly because you have no better option. The smallest children are always tucked in the middle, wrapped tight in the softest skins, often between two warm-bellied dogs. One girl has tied her hands into her sibling's belt so they don't drift apart while dreaming. That kind of closeness is survival. An elder once taught you the trick of wrapping heated stones in bark and keeping them under your furs. Make a belly, son, he said. You've tried it. It works. Unless the bark splits. Then it's just a rock. And it burns. You learned that the spicy way. There's also the shared breath. Trick 2. People face each other, nose to nose, and just breathe. It's awkward, intimate, effective. One time you sneezed during it and got punched in the arm. Fair. You remember your first frostbite. A toe. It turned gray, then white, then black around the nail. You cried more from fear than pain. The shaman rubbed it with bear fat and sang a song about warm earth and dancing fires. Somehow, it worked. The toe survived. Barely. But the story lives longer than the scar. Tonight, the fire sputters for a moment. A log collapses. Sparks shoot out toward the furs. You leap up, heart punching your ribs, and stomp them out before anything catches. No damage, but your pulse takes a while to come down. A few people mumble in their sleep. One dog growls. You apologize quietly to no one. Later, the smoke thickens. Someone coughs. You angle the hide flap above the venting hole just right, letting the smoke trail upward and out. It's a delicate dance between choking and freezing. You've almost got the rhythm now. You nibble on a strip of cold fat, have slow, and stare at the fire. It stares back. There's a moment when your eyelids get heavy. Just for a second, but you shake yourself awake. Slap your cheeks, and hum, a tune the kids taught you a nonsense chant about a wolf who steals socks. Ridiculous. Effective. To fight the boredom, you count your frost scabs. 4 on your fingers, 1 on your cheek. You think that's a record? Not the kind you want to beat. Sometime in the hour before dawn, the shaman stirs and joins you. He doesn't speak. He just adds a handful of pine needles to the fire and nods. The scent is sharp and clean. You sit together, quiet, watching the last stars vanish. When the first pink streaks kiss the snow outside, you feel something close to peace. Not joy, not comfort, but endurance. You've seen another sun crawl back from the abyss. You didn't freeze. The fire didn't die. The world kept turning. And for now, that's enough. You sit cross-legged on a flat stone, a curved sliver of bone in one hand and a dull flint in the other. Today, you're making tools, or trying to. Mostly, it's just you chipping away and trying not to bleed. Bone isn't soft, but it's friendlier than stone. It bends a little, gives when you scrape it right. But get cocky, and it'll crack like brittle candy. You learn fast to respect the grain. The first rule of Ice Age crafting: don't rush. The second: always face away from your own thigh. The tool you're working on is meant to be a needle, a long, thin one for threading sinew through hides. You've broken 3 already. Now you're being extra gentle, like it's a baby bird with a job interview. Across from you, an elder sharpens a fishhook. He works silently, lips pressed together, breath steady. His hook is made from mammoth ribstrong, smooth, and shaped to perfection. You're jealous. A little. He notices and tosses you a smile. 20 winters of mistakes. He says, bone tools were vital to Ice Age survival. Archaeologists have found spears, harpoons, awls, scrapers, and more, all carefully carved by hand, using stones and patience. Some scholars debate whether this skill passed mostly through family lines, or if it was shared openly in gatherings. Either way, you're definitely in the needs improvement club. You try to thin the eye of your needle, rotating it slowly, shaving a little more off the top. Snap. It breaks. You sigh. That's 4. Your hands are stiff from the cold, and now your knuckles bleeding from a slip. Nothing major, just enough to sting. You suck on the cut, grimacing. It tastes like dirt and frustration. Someone offers you a chunk of antler to work with instead. More forgiving. They say, it is present, but it smells like wet dog. You pretend not to notice. You watch another clanmate shaping a blade from a broken jawbone. It's curved, almost elegant. She scrapes the edge with sharp obsidian until it sings. You marvel, and then jealousy again. Yours looks like a sad toothpick. Eventually, you get a rhythm. Scrape. Turn. Shave. Breathe. You finish a half-decent needle and immediately lose it in the snow. Of course, after a minor panic and a full-body crawl, you find it clinging to your shin like a tick. Crisis averted. Later, you switch to making a scraper. Flat edge. Rounded grip. It works. Sort of. You test it on a scrap of hide and manage not to destroy it. Progress. You show it off. The elder nods politely. High praise. Quirky tool of the day? Someone made a flute from a vulture's wing bone. It plays exactly 3 notes. All of them vaguely fart-like. It's still the most requested instrument around the fire. Toward evening, while trying to carve grooves into a new awl, you slip. The flint blade digs under your thumbnail, and you yelp. Blood wells instantly. You hiss. Shake your hand. And then, because Ice Age rules are brutal, you finish the groove before tending the wound. The shaman wraps your finger in sinew and chews a root to smear over the cut. It smells terrible but numbs fast. You consider asking for 2. You end the day with a tiny collection-owned crooked needle, a so-so scraper, and a fingernail that's probably not coming back. Still, you made something. From bone. From effort. From nothing. And that's how survival works out, hair scraped together, one sharpened fragment at a time. After your mishap, you sit back and observe the tool circle more closely. There's something hypnotic about it, everyone hunched. Scraping. Breathing in rhythm. Sparks of concentration dance in their eyes. Even the dogs seem to understand it's a sacred hour. They curl quietly near the edges. Twitching ears but not barking. Nearby, someone works on barbed spearheads. They use a twisted tendon to bind tiny splinters of obsidian into grooves on bone shafts. The result is brutal and beautiful-like, something nature never intended, but secretly admires. One spear like that can drop a reindeer, if thrown right. If not, it just ends up lost in a tree. You've seen both outcomes. Another clanmate. A quiet woman, with nimble fingers, is carving spirals into a scraper handle. Not for function, just for beauty. She says it helps her grip better. You think it helps her stay sane. Everyone needs something to claim as theirs. Some tools even carry marks of identity, a notch for the family line. A dot pattern for how many animals it helped bring down. The clan has no written language, but the tools speak. They say who shaped them, who used them, who buried them in the snow and cried. But not all is calm. Tensions rise when a fresh mammoth carcass yields a particularly good femur. Thick, clean, little marrow damage. Arare kitsch. 3 people want it. Words are exchanged. Not loud, but sharp. Eventually, the elder assigns it by seniority. The others sulk. But no one challenges the rule. Bones matter more than feelings right now. The kids aren't left out either. One young boy proudly presents his digging fang, a chunky rib scraped down to a dull wedge. He insists it can tunnel into snow faster than a dog. He even races a dog to prove it. Losis. Still, the tool works. You give him a grin and a small piece of sinew. He beams like he just invented fire. You return to your own project. With the thumb bandaged, you're a little clumsier, but also more focused. pain has a way of sharpening your priorities. You manage to file down a thin bone sliver into a toggle something to fasten two pieces of hide together. Simple, but clever. You pocket it like treasure. Later that evening, as the sun dips and shadows stretch, the tool makers gather to compare results. There's no formal judging, but everyone side-eyes everyone else's work. A few compliments are exchanged. One woman straight up trades her scraper for a prettier one. No hard feelings. Everyone wins. The shaman blows gently through the vulture flute again. Still sounds like digestive trouble. But it gets a chuckle. You wrap your tools in a folded hide. Careful not to let any edges poke through. These are yours now. Made by your hands. Imperfect. Sure. But they exist where nothing did before. And as you settle by the fire, hands aching, fingernail throbbing, bone dust still under your nails, you feel something strange, pride. Like maybe you won't be just another frozen skeleton someday. Maybe you'll be remembered by the curve of a scraper or the hole in a needle. Maybe your story will live on in bone, and that's enough to keep carving tomorrow. The child is burning up. Even though the air could freeze tears mid-fall, her skin feels like summer trapped under thin, trembling bone. She hasn't opened her eyes in a day. Her breath comes in shallow gusts. Little puffs that barely rise above the furs. You kneel beside her, clutching a damp wad of moss to her forehead. It's not working. You know it. But you keep doing it anyway, because doing nothing would feel like giving up. The shaman arrives with a pouch of dried leaves and bark. He grinds them between two stones until they're powdery and foul-smelling. Then he mixes them into a paste with melted snow and presses it under the child's tongue. Her lips twitch. A good sign. Maybe. He hums something low, almost like bees under the earth. You don't recognize the tune, but your chest loosens just listening to it. Her mother strokes her hand over and over, whispering a story about swimming in the river last spring, about dragonflies, about catching a frog. Her voice cracks halfway through. Ice Age illness is no small thing. A cough can become death. A wound can rot. A fever can boil the life out of someone in a single sunrise. Historians argue about what illnesses these early humans actually suffered, whether it was bacterial infections from cuts, parasites from meat, or even ancient strains of flu. The bones show evidence of arthritis, broken ribs, and sometimes tumors, but fevers, they leave no trace, just silence. You remember your own fever years ago. The shaman smeared you with mud and wrapped you in smoke. You hallucinated birds flying through your chest. Then you got better. Or lucky. Tonight, the clan has stopped all unnecessary noise. No one hammers, carves, or argues. They sit close to the fire, speaking only when needed. The quiet itself becomes part of the healing. You wring out the moss again, replacing the warm patch with a cold one. The child murmurs something, just a sound. Really, but your heart flips like it heard a symphony. The shaman draws symbols in the soot around her head. Circles, lines, dots, protection, he says. Or maybe direction for the spirits, so they don't get lost on their way to help. You don't ask too many questions. You just keep watching her chest rise and fall. Rise and fall. Someone adds pine to the fire. The scent fills the cave. Sharp and clean. Another person brings a carved totema bird with outstretched wings and sets it near the child's foot. Not medicine, but maybe magic. Or comfort. At this point, you'll take either. The night deepens. Snow falls silently outside. The mother hums the frog story again. Softer, now. Like she's afraid to jostle the child's breath. The fire spits once. Then quiet. The child's skin is still hot, but not blistering. Her fingers curl slightly around the mother's. You let yourself hope. You pray not to a god, but to warmth, to time, to bacteria giving up. You promise ridiculous things in your mind. You'll never complain about hunting again. You'll eat every bone scrap. You'll even kiss the smelly dog. Just let this child stay. The shaman stands suddenly, nods, and leaves. No words. Just that slight nod. You watch his back disappear into the dark. You sit until your knees ache. Then lie beside the child and her mother, pulling your furs close, but leaving enough space to not trap the heat. You add another piece of dung to the fire and whisper thanks to it. You'd thank a rock if it helped. Eventually, your eyes close. Your dreams are strange flashes of green leaves, warm rivers, dragonflies the size of your hand. When you wake, the child is still breathing. Cooler now. Still here. Earlier in the day, when her breathing had grown faint, someone had quietly begun preparing the mourning cloak. It's a tradition stitched to gather the warmest furs. Not for life, but for the journey beyond. The idea is that even if the body fails, the soul travels wrapped in care. No one said it out loud, but you saw the elder laying out rabbit pelts and bear trim near the back wall. The stitching had already begun, but the shaman stopped it. Just a shake of the head. Sharp. Final. The elder packed the cloak away. Unfinished. You saw her hands tremble slightly. Illness always hovers like a second presence in the cave. Not just in the bodies, but in the air. In the water. In the eyes of the wary. Everyone has their own remedy-chewed bark. Boiled roots. Smudged charcoal smeared on the chest. One woman swears by sleeping with a pouch of owl feathers. Another insists that only raw marrow will cure a child's fever. Whether they work or not? No. One dares to question too strongly. There are stories of miraculous recoveries. One child once survived. A bite from a snow snake. Probably just a twisted ankle. But legends grow legs. A boy with a shattered arm healed so perfectly, he could throw better than before. The shaman says he was blessed by bone spirits. You're not sure what that means, but you pretend to. You've always feared sickness more than any predator. At least with a wolf. You can see it coming. Disease hides in the quiet. Behind smiles. Ona skin. It steals slowly. You remember one season when 3 old ones passed within a single moon. The silence they left was louder than their breathing ever was. Tonight, you watch the girl's chest again. Still rising. Her lips are less pale. Her brow has cooled enough that the moss no longer steams. Someone brings her a sliver of honeycomb, just to scent it. A memory of sweetness. She stirs. Opens one eye. Barely. But it's enough to send her mother into quiet sobs. You turn away. Rubbing your eyes like it's just smoke. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Later, the clan sings just one song, low and slow, about a warm sun and green hills. It's an old one, passed down from before the ice. No one knows the original words anymore, just sounds that feel safe. You hum too, softly, and the fire hums with you. By dawn, the fever has broken. Her skin feels human again. Not furnace. She drinks water. She smiles. Barely, but it's real. You've seen a miracle, or medicine, or both. You don't ask. You just sit back. Press a warm hand to your own chest, and let out the breath you didn't know you were holding. She's still here. And so are you. Snow shouldn't make noise. But this one does. It hisses sideways. A constant whispering roar in your ears. You can't see 10 steps ahead. You can't see your own feet. The world has vanished into white. And you are alone. You didn't mean to be out this late. You'd followed tracks of hair. You thought too far past the ridge. Then the wind turned. The sky dimmed. And now, you're one wrong footstep from never being found. You crouch near a stunted pine, hoping it breaks the wind. It doesn't. The snow wraps around the trunk like smoke, swirling and stinging. Every exposed inch of skin burns. You pull your furs tighter, squint through the storm, and try to remember the direction of home. Then you hear it, not the storm, not your own heartbeat, but something deeper, heavier, a breath, close. You freeze, not from cold, but instinct. Something is nearby, watching. You can feel it not with your eyes, but with the small, ancient animal part of your brain that once lived in trees. You turn slowly. There, barely visible through the snow, is a shape. Low, muscular, silent. It steps forward once, and the flakes part just enough to show you a face. A cave lion, larger than any lion you've ever seen in paintings. Massive paws. A thick mane. Darker than a shadow. Historians debate whether cave lions had full manes or not. Some fossils suggest minimal fur around the neck. Others show more elaborate coats. Either way, this one looks regal and hungry. You don't move. You barely breathe. He watches you, blinks, sniffs the air. Then he steps sideways, not toward you, but around you, circling, testing. Maybe he's unsure if you're food or threat. You pull your spear slowly from your back. Fingers numb. Grip trembling. You raise it slightly. Not to attack. Just to show, I have teeth too. The lion huffs once. Not a roar, more of a grumble. Then he sits. Just sits. As if this were amusing, the wind howls louder. Snow fills your ears and eyes. And still, the lion sits. You decide to move. Not run, just walk. Sideways. Toward a cluster of rocks you think might be the edge of the slope home. The lion follows. Slowly. Padding silently in your wake. Quirky detail. Ice Age lions didn't live in prides. They were mostly solitary. So this one, he's got nothing better to do. You're his afternoon entertainment. You make it to the rocks and duck between two boulders. It's tighter here, harder for him to follow. You hope he approaches the gap, sniffs, then lies down at the entrance, tail flicking, like a cat toying with a mouse in a jar. You press deeper into the crevice, heart hammering. You can't climb over, can't go back. You're stuck. Time warps. You don't know if it's minutes or hours. The storm rages on. Eventually, the lion stands, stretches, and walks away. Just like that, you wait a while longer. Then, longer still. Finally, till you crawl from the rocks, the snow has softened. The air is clearer, and they're faint. But real you, see the curve of the ridge. Home. You walk fast, then faster. Then you run. You don't stop until the cave swallows you back. You don't speak for a while. Just sit near the fire and shake. The lion didn't kill you, but he didn't spare you either. He just reminded you, you're not the only hunter out here. Your breath comes in jagged puffs, visible for just a second, before the wind tears it away. The cold is no longer biting its burrowing. It slips past fur and hide, and finds the hollows of your bones. Your fingers go from pain to pins and needles to nothing. You wiggle them anyway, just to make sure they're still there. As you huddle behind the rock, watching the lion's tail flick like a metronome of dread, your mind drifts. It's a survival tactic. The body shuts out panic with memory. You remember stories whispered near the fire, two of hunters, never returning, of shredded tents, of paw prints too large to be real. Once, someone swore a cave lion dragged a whole reindeer carcass up a slope faster than two men could carry it down. You laughed at the time. You're not laughing now. The lion's eyes blink once. Slowly. They lock with yours for a heartbeat longer than you want. In that gaze, there's no malice, no pity, just the cold recognition of another warm body that happens to still be alive. You wonder if he's full, or just not interested in fighting today. You wonder if some ancient etiquette exists between predators. You wonder if you're hallucinating. The wind dies down enough for a few flakes to drift lazily, almost peacefully. The silence between you and the lion feels thick, like wool soaked in snowmelt. You breathe in, shallow, and the air burns, not from fire but from the ache of staying alive. Then, just when you're sure you can't bear another second of his watchful silence, he rises. He turns his head east, sniffing the air. Something else has caught his attention. Maybe a better meal. Maybe nothing. He walks off without a sound, paws vanishing into white. You crawl out stiffly. Your legs protest. Your knees crack. You stumble to the edge of the bluff where you first spotted the rocks. As you crest the hill, you see deep claw marks in the bark of a birch. Recent, too high to have been made by anything else. It wasn't just a chance meeting. He'd been there before, watching, maybe waiting. The path home feels longer than it did when you came out. Snow slips into your boots, soaking your feet. You clench your jaw to stop your teeth from rattling like flint in a pouch. Every step feels like dragging stone behind you. When the cave mouth finally appears through the pale haze, you almost weep. You slide inside, nearly collapsing. Someone helps you peel off your outer layers. They ask if you're hurt, You shake your head. But you are. You're hurt in the place where fear settles after it's had a good look around. Later, while you doze near the fire, someone asks what you saw. You don't answer. Not at first. Then you simply say, "The lion blinked first." They laugh. You don't. That night, you dream of golden eyes in snow, blinking slowly, with ancient patience. Not cruel, just watching. Waiting. The death comes at night. Quiet as frost on stone. One breath. Then none. No scream. No struggle. Just silence. And then the cold fills the space where the warmth had been. You wake to the sound of shuffling feet and low voices. No panic, just acceptance. One of the elders, a woman whose laughter used to echo through the cave like flint, striking flint, has passed. She had been sick for days, maybe weeks. No one counted. Time blurs when you're waiting for someone to stop breathing. She lies wrapped in her furs, eyes closed, mouth slightly open like she's mid-lullaby. Someone placed a carved shell in her hand, the one she always wore on a string around her neck. You remember her holding it up to the firelight, saying it sang when the winds were right. You never heard anything, but you always nodded. Now, the rituals begin. The fire is fed until it blazes hot and high. Not for burning, but for memory. Heat rises, and so must the spirit. You help gather the sacred herbs, dried moss, wild mint, shavings of old mammoth tusk. These are sprinkled over the coals, sending a sharp scent into the air that pricks the nose and makes the eyes sting. Everyone gathers close. The shaman steps forward, wearing the bone crown. It's made from the ribs of an aurochs and still smells faintly of smoke. He speaks in a language older than memory, syllables stretched and rounded like stones in a river. No one understands every word, but understanding isn't always the point. You kneel beside the body and touch her forehead with 2 fingers. As tradition demande. 1 finger for memory, 1 for release. The skin is cool, almost smooth. You whisper a Naminat hers. But yours, it's a way of saying goodbye without needing full sentences. Historians still argue whether these early people believed in an afterlife or simply honored the dead for practical and social reasons. But here, now, it feels deeply personal. A send-off, not an erasure. A small mound is prepared not far from the cave mouth. The soil has been softened by the fire's ash from days before intentionally planned. She's not buried deep, but high enough for spirits to reach. The shaman says. Grave goods are added. A flint blade, her carved spoon, the broken comb she refused to throw away. Symbols of a life lived and a self maintained. The quirky detail? Some believe the dead can hear one last thing before they pass fully into spirit form. So everyone takes a turn whispering into the mound. Blessings, jokes, apologies. You hear someone thank her for always sharing the last bit of marrow. Another says they'll keep using her lucky spear handle. Someone even sings part of a mating song she liked. It makes you laugh, then feel guilty for laughing, then grateful. The wind picks up, as if it's responding. You squint at the sky. A streak of light crosses it, just a shooting star. Maybe, or maybe not. You stand in silence. One by one, people drift back toward the fire. No one says, "It's over." Because it isn't. She's just not here anymore. But part of her always will be. You linger last. The mound looks peaceful. Like a full stop at the end of a long sentence, you touch your own necklace. A tooth from a bear you didn't kill but still carry. Someday, someone will do this for you. Hopefully not soon. You remember when you were small, barely old enough to hold a stick without poking your own eye. She was the one who taught you to tie knots with sinew. She called them whispers. Each twist was a message. When you tied your first good one, she laughed and said it meant you'd never be hungry. You've tied 100 since. Each one, still a silent note to the world. She wasn't the strongest, or the fastest, but she remembered everything. How to shape the flint flakes without slicing your hand. How to boil roots without making everyone vomit. Which mushrooms turned blue when they were poisonous, and which ones just like to show off. She once said that every person is 3 things: the body you're in, the voice you leave behind, and the story people tell after you're gone. Today, her voice is gone. Her body too. Almost. But her story, well, that's what today is really about. The shaman begins painting stripes across the rocks near the burial site thick. Dark lines mixed with ash and berry juice. These aren't art. They're markers. According to the old ways, they tell the spirits, someone passed here. So, be gentle with the rest of us. They're a sort of warning. Or a prayer. You help him smear a line yourself, dipping your fingers in the mixture. It stains like dried blood. You press your palm into the stone, and when you pull it back, the print stays. Maybe it always will. Historians debate whether such markings were about death, or something more, maybe territory, maybe memory. No one knows for sure. But you feel it. These symbols matter. They carry grief forward, so it doesn't drown you. As night falls, the clan returns to the cave, but you remain behind for a few minutes. Just you, the mound, and the cold. You sit beside it, listening to the wind brush, the heather. Then, slowly, you remove your necklace, the bear tooth. You hold it up, let it catch the moonlight, then press it into the dirt at the base of the mound. Not because she needs it, but because you do. You need part of you to stay with her. It's not a tradition, not officially, but grief has no handbook. You whisper one last thing into the earth. Something small, something only she would understand. Then you rise, stiff, and start the walk back to the others. Behind you, the wind lifts a few flakes of snow. They spiral, then settle again. The mound watches in silence, but you don't feel alone. The morning after the burial, you wander beyond the cave mouth, not really looking for anything, just needing air that doesn't taste like smoke and sorrow. Your feet crunch across frost-laced moss, each step cracking like thin ice. You drift toward the ridge, where old wind-scoured boulders lean against each other like gossiping elders. That's when you see it, half buried beneath a slab of granite. Tucked between root and stone is a flint blade, dull with time, jagged at the edge, but still unmistakably shaped by human hands. You squat beside it, brush away the dirt, and lift it carefully. It's heavier than you expect. And older. Much older. Someone maybe 100 generations ago made this. Chipped it. Honed it. Used it to carve. Cut. Bleed. Survive. You can see the thumb notch. Smoothed from use. The edge still carries a slight bite, as if it remembers what it once was. You carry it back to the cave. Inside. The shaman squints at it, turns it over once in his hand, and nods. Ancestor blade. He mutters. Then he hands it back. That's it. No fanfare. No ceremony. Just quiet acknowledgement that this thing outlived its maker. And now it's yours. You take it to your usual spot by the fire and begin to clean it. Gently. With moss and melted snow. Bits of old earth fall away. You scrape the edge with your carving stone, sharpening it a sliver at a time. The clan gathers slowly, one by one. They drift over, not speaking, just watching. Tools are intimate things. They tell stories without sound. Historians believe early humans often repaired tools rather than making new ones, especially ones passed down. There's even evidence that certain stone blades were reworked for centuries, adapting to changing needs. The thought is almost funny-like, giving an old phone new software. But here, it's not just practical, it's spiritual. You run your finger along the groove line and imagine the hands that carved it. Were they shaking from cold, covered in blood, joyful at their first kill, or just tired? You fit the blade into a fresh piece of antler. Lash it with sinew. Knot it tight. It's a new handle now, but the soul of the blade remains. Someone brings over their own broken scraper. Then another. Soon, it becomes a little circle, a quiet workshop. Old blades meet new hands. Every strike of stone is a spark of memory. You don't speak, but you feel connected, not just to the people around you, but to the ones who aren't, the ones who came before. The quirky detail? One tool you find isn't even yours. It belonged to a child. Tiny grip marks on the handle. Nicks from clumsy practice strikes. The antler is cracked, but still strong. You restore it anyway and set it aside. Maybe one day, another child will find it again. The firelight glints off a dozen surfaces. Edges. Grooves. Glimmers of history. When you finally pause, your hands are sore but calm. Like you've been speaking in a language older than words, you place the ancestor blade on the stone shelf above the hearth. Not for show, for presence. Tomorrow, you might use it to skin a hare or cut a strip of hide, but tonight, it's enough that it's here. Steel sharp, still yours. The rhythm of repair becomes a kind of trance. Scrape. Test. Sharpen. Repeat. Your hands move without asking. Somewhere in your chest. A quiet satisfaction settles a kind. You don't get from eating or winning or warming your toes by the fire. This is the satisfaction of fixing something, of touching the past and making it useful again. You remember the first time you ever broke a tool. It was a scraper. Just a small one. You dropped it trying to mimic a hunter's throw. It snapped in two. You'd cried. Not because it was irreplaceable, but because it felt like you'd failed the person who made it. The elder who trained you had simply picked up the pieces, handed you the larger one, and said, Then now it's a knife. Oh. That lesson stayed with you. There's something almost absurd about the fact that flakes of rock could shape the fate of a species. And yet, here you are, descended from those who knew which angle to strike, which sound meant sharpness, which chip line followed the grain. Historians still argue whether this tool-making leap was sudden or slow, whether it came from a spark of insight or just endless trial and error. Either way, the result is in your hand. The air smells of flint, dust, and resin. Your fingertips are scraped and blackened. You grip another broken blade and start anew. Each notch you carve becomes a line in a poem you'll never speak out loud. At one point, a child curls beside you. Watching intently, you show her how to flake a corner, and she grins when the chip flies just right. Maybe she'll remember this moment, decades from now, when her own hands are steady and someone else's are small and eager. Eventually, you wrap the last tool in leather, label it with a charcoal mark, and store it with care. These aren't just things, they're promises, proof that you were here, and that you cared enough to make something last. Outside, the stars blink on, cold, distant, timeless. Inside, your fire glows. So do your hands. You try to fix one blade too quickly, strike the flint at the wrong angle, and it snaps straight through. A clean, ugly break. You curse under your breath. The child beside you gasps, then giggles. You glance at her, mock serious, and say, "That one was a test." She nods solemnly, barely holding in her laughter. Everyone's broken something before. It's part of learning. You take a breath, slow your hands, and start over. That's the real trick, accepting the mistakes without letting them stick to you. A cousin leans over and mumbles, "I've ruined 5 this week." You both chuckle. It's comforting, knowing even the experienced ones fail. Tool-making isn't just shaping stone. It's shaping patience, learning where the rock wants to split, not forcing it, understanding when to press and when to stop. You start to think it's not so different from living with people. By the time you've finished, you don't feel like a child anymore. You feel ancestral, like someone who might, one day, to be remembered for how well they held a blade. You smile without meaning to, and the blade in your hand gleams just slightly as the fire flickers low. The air turns dry and sharp. Even the snow crunches with a new brittleness beneath your boots. The animals have vanished again. No tracks, no droppings, no sounds in the night. It's the hunger season. You feel it first in your stomach. Of course, that hollow ache that comes and goes like a wave, but then it moves elsewhere into your muscles, your thoughts. Everything takes twice the effort. Every step feels like you're walking through wet fur. The clan gathers closer to the fire, burning less wood now, hoarding it. You count roots in the storage pit. Not enough. Someone lifts a dried fish skin and declares it maybe still edible. You're not convinced. There's an old Rulino one eats alone. If there's food, it's shared. And if there's none, the silence is shared instead. Even the children know this. You see one quietly set aside her scrap of roasted marrow for the elder with shaky hands. No one says anything. but the gesture ripples across the circle. You help the hunters check the traps. Nothing. A bit of fur. But no body. Something escaped barely. You repair the snare with cold fingers. Clumsy, but determined. The quirky detail? The shaman insists on placing a carved mammoth figurine next to the bait. Luck, he says. Or maybe he's just trying everything. Historians still argue whether Ice Age communities truly rationed, or if desperation led to chaos. But here, at least, you see order. A kind of grim cooperation. No one's stealing. No one's hoarding. Everyone's just waiting. One night, the wind howls so long, it feels like the sky itself is hungry. You huddle under your furs and dream of meat. Not cooked. Not even clean. Just something with blood in it. In the morning, you chew on old birch bark. It helps a little. Then someone comes sprinting from the ridge barefoot. Wild-eyed. Tracks. They yell. Fresh ones. Big heart. Huh. The fire stirs. People jump to their feet. Spears are grabbed. Runners dispatched. You're not sure if it's real or just another hunger hallucination, but you follow. Because what else can you do? You reach the rise, and there they are, dozens of reindeer. Moving slow. Weighed by snow. Real. You can smell them. See steam puffing from their nostrils. It's not a perfect hunt. You lose one runner in the drift. Another comes back with a limp and a bruised ego. But you bring one down. The cave smells like hope again. Even with the kill, you ration carefully. Nothing is wasted. The stomach gets stuffed with herbs and boiled into soup. The hide is dried flat and scraped smooth. The bones are split for marrow, and the sharp splinters used for needles. You watch the pieces of this animal disappear into the tribe. Into coats and tools and bowls and bellies. It feels sacred, even though no one says that word. You eat slowly, savoring, eyes closed. The fat melts across your tongue like a warm sun after weeks of frost, and when the pot is scraped clean, someone whistles a tune. Just 3 notes, but it feels like a celebration. For now, the hunger is gone. But you know it'll be back. That night, someone proposes a memory circle. It's not a cheerful tradition, but it helps. One by one, people share stories of hunger seasons, past when a cave collapsed, when firewood froze so hard it broke the axe, when a mother gave her portion to her baby and never woke again. No one interrupts. These aren't stories for pity. They're warnings, stitched into memory. The shaman speaks last. He reminds everyone of the time 2 clans met at the river, crossing during a lean winter. They shared fish until the fish ran out. Then one clan vanished. It's better, he says, to hunger with friends than feast with strangers who eye your throat. You're not sure what that means exactly, but it sticks in your ribs like a stone. In private, a debate begins quiet but sharp. There isn't enough for everyone to stay strong. So who should get the biggest share? The hunters, the pregnant women, the elders? A cousin suggests rotating by day. Another says to feed the strongest first, so they can gather more. An uncle snorts. That's how you end up alone. Oh, historians still argue whether these rationing decisions were democratic or authoritarian. maybe it didn't matter. Hunger is a king with many crowns. You take your portion without complaint. It's small, barely warm, but it's something. You pretend it's more. Everyone does. Later, you see two children sneak behind the rock wall. You follow, worried, but they're just huddling, trading scraps like treasure. One even licks the inside of a fish bladder. You nearly cry, but not from sadness, from the sheer stubbornness of survival. Someone boils bones again. The smell is bitter, but it draws people in. The fire flickers lower. You wrap your arms around your knees, press your forehead to the stone wall, and whisper, one thing you miss. Your voice cracks on the word berries. It echoes softly. Tomorrow, maybe you'll find some frozen under snow. Or maybe not. But tomorrow, you'll still be here. And sometimes, that's the win. That evening, you're asked to decide quietly between two bowls who gets the larger share, one for your cousin, who helped track the herd, one for the elder who hasn't left the sleeping mat in 3 days. The bowls look nearly the same, but you know which is which. Your hand hovers, and in that moment, your stomach clenches not from hunger, but from the weight of choosing. No one will know what you decide. Except you. You give the larger portion to the elder. Your cousin nods at you from across the fire, chewing slowly, pretending not to notice. Later, you remember an old story. Your grandmother once told how her grandmother had gone 9 days without food and claimed she could hear roots growing under the snow. That she sang to them, and they sang back. You always thought it was a joke. Tonight, you swear you can hear something too. A creak beneath the frost. A soft thrum in the rock. Not music, just persistence. You close your eyes. Let the sound settle into your bones. This is what surviving sounds like. It begins with the wind. A distant groaning. Low and sour. Like something dragging its claws across the sky. You pause at the cave mouth, peering into the dusk. Snow flurries spin upward. That's never good. Then comes the wall of white. The storm hits fast. One moment, you're breathing sharp air the next. It's ripped from your lungs. You lurch inside, dragging the hide door closed behind you. Someone shouts. The fire coughs. Sparks scatter across the stone like frantic fireflies. The flame gutters. You drop to your knees beside it, shielding it with your body. The others scramble to pile stones. Furs. Anything that might block the draft. The fire's heart flickers blue than orange than almost nothing. Panic simmers, because if the flame dies now, you're not just cold, you're doomed. You reach for the tinder pouch, fingers fumbling. The moss is damp, the resin chunk half spent. You curse the storm, the cave's mouth, the stupid mammoth figurine that didn't bring luck after all. Then you slow your breath. Because you remember fire doesn't like fear. You strike the flint once, twice, a spark. You blow gently, coaxing it like a stubborn child. Your breath is steady, your hands trembling only slightly. And then, miraculously it catches. The flame licks upward. Hungry and yellow, the clan exhales in unison. You feed it slowly. Pine resin, Birch curls, slivers of fat-drenched wood. The light returns. Shadows crawl back to their places. The storm howls for hours. But inside, the fire holds. You sit, watch, refusing to sleep, just in case. The quirky detail? Someone wraps a stone in wet leather and tosses it near the fire. It steams like a beast and makes everyone laugh through their fear. That's the spirit leaving. A kid says solemnly, historians still argue whether early humans truly had techniques to rekindle fire or simply guarded embers for dear life. Tonight, you know the answer. Both. Because this isn't just a flame. It's your pulse. You think of the ancestors who struck stone in darker caves than this, with wetter moss, with fewer chances, and you feel them beside you, nodding by morning. The cave smells of smoke and triumph. The storm has passed. Snow lies thick outside, crusted and beautiful, but inside it's warm. The shaman sprinkles crushed herbs into the fire, so it doesn't hold a grudge. He mutters, "You nod. That seems fair." Someone brings out a new log, thick, full of knots. You take your blade and begin to shave it. Slowly, carefully. The fire deserves only the best now. Hours pass. And still, no one leaves. It's as if your whole world has contracted to the dance of flame. The hiss of sap. The pop of bark. You remember another night years. Agawin, you let the fire die. You'd fallen asleep. Just for a moment. You woke to cold silence and panicked hands. That night, the whole clan huddled and shivered till dawn. No one blamed you, but you never forgot. You never will. So now, you stay close. Feed it like a creature. Speak to it when no one's listening. This flame is family. And you're never letting it go again. You stay awake long after everyone else drifts off. The fire's light dances on the cave walls, casting distorted shadows that sway like spirits in ritual. Your eyes blur, but you keep watch. Not just because the fire matters, but because it feels like something is watching back. You remember the first time you made fire? You were barely tall enough to reach the stones. The elder had shown you how to strike flint against pyrit not too fast, not too slow. At first, nothing happened. Then came the spark. You shouted. The fire didn't light. But you'd seen it. That tiny leap of light, later, with dry grass and trembling hands. You made a flame the size of a beetle, and everyone cheered. You burned your fingertip trying to feed it too soon. You still have the scar. Tonight, your hands are steady, but your heart trembles the same way it did then. The shaman wakes briefly, mutters, "Don't look away too long. Fire's jealous. If it thinks you're bored, it leaves." You almost laugh. But there's a truth buried in the joke. Later, someone asks, grudgingly, "Is fire alive?" A sleepy debate stirs. One voice says, "Yes," because it breathes and eats. Another says no, because it doesn't bleed. Someone else shrugs. Maybe it's a ghost that likes wood. And historians still argue how early people viewed fire tool, spirit, or deity. But in this moment, you know it's more than heat. It's memory. It's will. It's proof that you belong to a long, unbroken chain of survivors who coaxed warmth from stone. As dawn peeks over the ridge, you feed it one last log, brush the ash from your knees, and lean back, your eyes closed just briefly, firelight still flickering across your lids. You sleep knowing it's safe, and so are you. When the others wake, they blink at the steady fire like it's a dream they didn't expect to still be true. The elder who's been sick places a single carved bead by the hearth. "Payment," she says, "in case it wants tribute." "Oh," you nod solemnly. The children ask to try. You guide their tiny hands, showing how to strike gently, angle just right. Sparks jump, and they shriek with delight. Even the shy one manages a small ember. "I made that," he whispers, eyes wide. You smile. "I did." You lead a few people outside, gather kindling in silence. No one speaks loudly, not out of fear, but out of reverence, as if the woods themselves remember the storm. Back in the cave, you stack the new pile neatly, wrapped in bark. The shaman grins. "Now the fire owes us." Everyone laughs. You sit again by the hearth. Ash streaked on your arms, soot in your hair, and realize something odd. You feel honored. Not proud, not heroic, just honored to have protected something ancient, something simple, something sacred. The fire crackles, almost like it's thanking you back. And this time, you believe it. The cave is quiet in a new way, not just from the wind or the fire's hush, but because someone is missing. She passed in the night quietly, without a sound. An elder. She hadn't spoken much in weeks, but her presence had always filled corners. Now, those corners feel hollow. There's no panic, no screams, just a soft settling of grief. Like snow on a branch. People move gently, hands slow, voices low. You gather around her body, wrapped in fur and laid beside the warm stones. The ritual begins. You help prepare her for the long journey. Charcoal lines are drawn across her brow and cheeks, symbols that mean safe travel. Clear sky. Her favorite stone is tucked into her hand. A dried flower, pressed last summer, is placed over her heart. You remember her laugh? Sharp, like snapping twigs. She once convinced you to eat boiled moss just to see your face. You didn't forgive her for days. The shaman hums, not a song exactly, more like a memory made into sound. Others join. It builds, slow and strange, until the cave feels full of voices, even though most are whispers. A fringe theory says some Ice Age burials included music made from animal bones and wind primitive flutes, and tonight, someone pulls one from the supply pack. It's small, hollow, and when it plays, it sounds like the wind remembered how to sing. You help carry her out at dusk. Snow muffles every step. The grave is shallow, but dug with care, not in haste. She's laid gently inside, still wrapped, still whole. Stones are stacked, bones added, a talon from a hawk, a sliver of obsidian, a braid of grass, Gifts from each of you. Not valuable, but real. Historians still argue whether Ice Age burials were spiritual or simply ritualized sanitation. But here, there is reverence. You feel it in your chest. A cousin starts to cry. Not loudly, just steady tears, streaking ash across his face. You stay until the stars come out. Then someone raises a torch and waves smoke toward the north, the place where the ones before us are believed to rest. The fire burns low when you return. No one speaks for a while. Then the shaman says, "She'll be back, in a fox, or a snowdrift, or maybe just your dreams." And that somehow helps. You sit in your usual place, but it feels altered. She's not here, but also, she is. You fall asleep with the flute song still echoing. In the morning, a fox is seen circling the grave. You watch its tail vanish into the frost, and you swear it paused just long enough to wink. You don't tell anyone. But all day, you feel watched, not in fear. In memory, after the burial, the fire becomes the new center, again. Not for warmth this time, but for stories. No one calls it a wake. But that's what it is, a gentle keeping of her memory. You sit, wrapped in furs. The bone flute resting beside you. The shaman begins. She once claimed she could hear glaciers dreaming. He says, a few people chuckle. Unsure if it's a joke or a truth, she once believed. Then others speak up. She used to whistle at snow and say it whistled back. She never cut meat with a dull blade sade. It made the spirits taste bitter. She once yelled at a thunderstorm, and it actually paused. Oh? Each story is stranger than the last. But no one questions them. That's the point. Stories grow taller when the person who lived them isn't around to protest. You remember a night long ago when she pulled you aside during a storm and taught you to hum a low tone to calm your fear. You didn't believe her. But you hummed anyway. It worked. You hum it now. The quirky part? She had a pouch full of odd Tokenswolf teeth. Seashells from a coast no one here has seen. A wooden bead shaped like a bear cub's paw. She called them her bargaining chips for the afterlife. You quietly add one to your own pouch. Historians still argue if Ice Age clans believed in an afterlife as we define it, or if their rituals were simply cultural glue. But for you, this doesn't feel like custom. It feels like hope made real. The next morning, you wake early. The cave's still hushed. You step out alone and kneel beside her stone-covered resting place. You whisper a thank you for warmth, for laughter, for teaching you to listen when there's nothing but wind. You return to camp with lighter steps, not because the grief is gone, but because it's softened, shared, made easier by the quiet chorus of those who carry it together. That night, a few of you take turns sitting near the burial mound, not for safety, but out of something else. A duty, a promise. You're given the midnight watch. You sit wrapped in furs, the torch flickering beside you. The stars are brutal in their clarity, sharp points of light in a sky that feels both infinite and close. A child joins you, wordless at first. Then she asks, will she still be cold? You think, then shake your head. No, not anymore. Another silence. Then, will we all go into snow one day? You nod. She doesn't cry, just leans her head on your shoulder, and eventually, she sleeps. Before dawn, you take the last item from your puchone of her old carved pebbles with the spiral mark and set it atop the stones. It's smooth from years of her holding it. Thumb, rubbing the groove in a perfect circle. You press it in place with care. Not hidden, not flashy, just enough to say, we remember. When the sun rises, the frost glitters across her grave like scattered starlight. And for the first time in days, the wind is still. The first drip echoes like a drum beat. You're gathering wood when you hear itany at first. Almost ignorable. A drop of meltwater tapping against stone. Then another. Then dozens. You look up. The icicles along the cave's mouth are weeping. Spring has come. It doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps. It seeps. It loosens the world by fractions. The snow doesn't vanish. It sulks away, leaving behind patches of stubborn brown grass and dirty stone. But it's enough. You see a crow. Then three. The river that's been sleeping under its crust begins to hum. A trickle becomes a ripple. And suddenly, there's movement in places that had gone still. You step outside with bare hands. Just for a moment. The air is still cold, but no longer cruel. It smells like wet bark and something green trying to remember itself. Inside the cave, people begin to shed layers. You notice smiles, not big ones, but quiet ones. Someone sings a tune that doesn't sound like mourning. The quirky bit? A child finds a beetle and declares it the new clan pet. It lives in a gourd and is fed bits of dried root. Someone draws tiny cave art of it beside the mammoths. Historians still argue whether Ice Age groups marked seasonal changes with ceremony or instinct. But you feel something lift as if the cave itself is exhaling. Hunting shifts. You follow herds further. Food becomes frequent. Fat returns to cheeks. The fire no longer needs constant guarding. But you still feed it. Just in case. One evening, the shaman throws a handful of dried grass into the flames and says, "We're not the same people who entered this winter." And you believe him? You dream less of hunger and more of rivers. Your feet itch to walk farther. You know the cave won't hold you forever, but it held you when it had to. And that's enough. You help pack furs, tools. The fire is carried in a clay cradle. Still warm. You turn back once. Look at the soot-streaked walls. The scratched floor. The place where stories were whispered and people were remembered. You nod to it. And you leave. You walk further now than you have in moons. The ice has peeled back from the riverbanks, revealing stones polished smooth by ancient flow. You crouch and run your fingers along them cold, but not bitter. Each one feels like a forgotten tooth from the earth-sown smile. Birds start to return in full. One morning you wake to the sound of trills instead of wind. A flock of cranes arcs overhead, trailing shadows like threads across the melting snow. The children chase after them, arms outstretched as if they could fly too. You find a small field of shoots poking out of the ground. Green, defiant, hungry for sun. Someone suggests roasting them. Someone else insists they're sacred. You laugh and decide to do both. A ritual and a snack. Later, the elder who once barely stirred from the hearth takes a walk alone, just to the ridge and back. She returns flushed, holding a sprig of early mint. She passes it around, and the scent is dizzying sharp. Alive, like something long forgotten. The quirky moment? One of the younger hunters carves a flute from thaw-softened wood and plays a song with no melody. Just rhythm and breath. It's the sound of the mud trying to stand up, he says. And, weirdly, that makes perfect sense. That evening, you all sit by the fire for the last time in this cave. The walls are nearly bare now. Only the oldest drawings remain faint mammoths. Clumsy deer. Spirals etched in soot and memory. Someone asks if you'll come back. You say maybe, but you know the truth. This place held you, but you're meant to move. Historians still argue how nomadic Ice Age clans decided when to migrate. Was it instinct, starvation, or just a collective feeling? For your group, it's clear. It's time. You rise at dawn. The fire, now just coals, is carefully packed into a new clay cradle, sealed with damp moss and twine. You step into the warming day. The cave behind you now quiet, not empty, just at peace. As you descend the hill, the youngest child runs back for one last glance. She waves at the empty cave and whispers something you can't hear. But when she catches up, she smiles and says, "I told it thank you." You don't correct her. You don't need to. Because you feel it tooth quiet gratitude. The ache of goodbye, mixed with the thrill of tomorrow. You're not just walking away from stone and soot and memory. You're walking toward something bigger than you can name. The clan moves as one now. A long, soft line etched into thawing earth. Boots squishing in mud. Packs bobbing with every step. You are the end of the Ice Age's breath. The first whisper of spring's reply. And for the first time in a long while, you don't feel like prey or predator. You just feel human. And now, you're walking through a clearing. Snow patches dapple the ground. But most of it has given way to soft moss and brownish grass. Your breath no longer fogs in front of you. The cold still nips, but it no longer bites. You hear birds. Honest birdsong. Not just the cause of scavengers. Real song. You don't realize how much you missed it until you stop just to listen. The light is gold now, not white, and it spills across the hill in lazy folds. You walk a little slower, not because you're tired, but because you want this to last just a moment longer. Your footsteps are quiet, softened by thawing earth. The sky above is vast, soft-edged, and for the first time in many nights, it doesn't feel like it's pressing down. You know you'll face more winters. There will be more hunger, more loss, more songs sung beside fading fires. But for now, your hands are warm, your belly is full, and your story has not ended. So let that settle. Let the warmth spread. Let your mind drift to the quiet hush of snow melting from stone, of old grief becoming soft memory, of the long cold finally releasing its hold. The wind is still. The fire waits. And Sleepless. Deep, dreamless sleep welcomes you back into its arms. Sweet dreams.